Chapter 278. Back at school, Poplar Fruit went to pick up Kiki. What's wrong with you? You keep throwing Kiki to me. Is Kiki your daughter or my daughter? Fong Beibei could not help but blame him and said, Why are you so busy every day? You've earned enough money. Why do you still have to work so hard to earn this little bit of money? I'm sorry. Poplar Fruit could only say with a smile. Today, when he went to find Cheonjuan, he told Fong Beibei that he was going to a meeting. He did not want to tell Fong Beibei about this matter, so he rarely lied. Moreover, when he came back, he changed his clothes in the car and covered his hand, fearing that Fong Beibei would see the wound. This kind of meeting only comes a few times a year. Usually, I don't need to be busy, so don't worry, Poplar Fruit said with a smile. I'll pick up Kiki and Gold. See you next time. Let's go. Fong Beibei said to Poplar Fruit. I have to go back to school later. See you, Beibei. Kiki politely waved to Fong Beibei. Fong Beibei gave her a flying kiss, and Kiki also learned to do the same. Returning to her father's embrace, Kiki was very excited and chattered nonstop. Poplar Fruit did not understand what his daughter was saying, because Kiki's expression was not very coherent, and there were many words that Kiki did not understand, so it was a bit messy, and all kinds of tone words were mixed in. Poplar Fruit smiled and kissed his daughter's forehead, tied her to the baby safety seat in the front passenger seat, and then returned to his seat at ease. As for Gold, of course, it was in the third row of the trunk. What song do you want to listen to? Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. However, he was just asking casually. Before Kiki could figure out his question, Poplar Fruit clicked on a children's song that Kiki liked to listen to. Then he slowly started the car. La 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 la. Kiki listened to the song and danced with joy, singing along. Poplar Fruit listened to his daughter's childish voice and laughed all the way. He was in a good mood. However, when he got home, Poplar Fruit's mood worsened again. He carried Kiki to Duan Xueqing's door. He knocked on the door many times, but Duan Xueqing didn't open the door. What happened? Poplar Fruit took out his phone and looked at the time. He said to himself, It's already 8 o'clock. Why isn't she home? At home. Kiki imitated her father's words and scratched her father's hair. She wanted to make her father's hair into a chicken's nest. Don't make trouble, Poplar Fruit said softly. He went upstairs and knocked on Song Jiwen's door. He asked, Where's Duan Xueqing? Why isn't she home? I was just about to tell you, Song Jiwen said, wearing only a pair of underpants. Don't talk about it. Hurry up and put on your clothes. Poplar Fruit covered Kiki's eyes and said to Song Jiwen helplessly, Didn't I tell you not to dress so casually at home? Oh, after having a daughter, you started talking about me? Who used to be naked at home when there was no one else? Song Jiwen curled his lips. This was something that Poplar Fruit said himself. Although he was complaining, he still put on his clothes. Duan Xueqing moved back to where she used to live. Song Jiwen said. This morning, she asked for leave to move. I wanted to talk to you about this later. Why did she move back? She's living well. Poplar Fruit frowned and asked. She came a few times and didn't see you come back. She was disheartened. Of course, she had to move. Don't tell me you'll change your mind, Song Jiwen said. I didn't have any bad feelings for her, okay? Poplar Fruit said. Her previous place wasn't as good as here. Why did she have to move back? Hey, I don't want to talk about your relationship. You can deal with it yourself. Song Jiwen laughed and said, I'm going back to play games. Since Kitten left, Song Jiwen's relationship had been at a low point. Poplar Fruit didn't see him go out to hook up with women. Instead, he devoted himself to the game. You might as well go to the bubble bar. Poplar Fruit couldn't help but say to him. You come back from work all day to play games. Look at you, how pale is your face? I can't be corrupt. I have to save money to marry a wife. Song Jiwen shouted and ran to the bedroom. Poplar Fruit shook his head speechlessly. He closed the door and went back to his house. Kiki and Goldie stayed in her playground to play, while Poplar Fruit took out his phone and stood in the small space in the kitchen to call Duan Xueqing. After thinking for a while, Duan Xueqing picked up the phone. After a moment of silence, she said coldly, Hello. You moved back? Poplar Fruit asked. Yeah, Duan Xueqing replied. One word, even just a nasal sound, couldn't be more concise. Why did you move back? It's good here. Poplar Fruit asked. I don't want to live here. Duan Xueqing paused for a moment and said, if it's because of me, don't torture yourself like this. Poplar Fruit couldn't help but persuade. We've always been good friends. Why can't we just chat and laugh like before? Duan Xueqing was silent. Poplar Fruit had no choice but to change the topic and said, I called you because I found out about the photos. Say it. Duan Xueqing was silent for a moment and said, I found the person who secretly took photos of me, and he confessed the mastermind behind the scenes. Poplar Fruit said, guess who? Duan Xueqing was silent. Poplar Fruit had to answer his own question. It's that bastard Liang Zhenglin. Do you know that the group of bikers at our class reunion at Hot Pot City was also found by him? Oh, Duan Xueqing softly responded. This guy is really full of evil tricks. After I blocked him for you, he still didn't give up. You see, he secretly took photos of me to drive a wedge between us. He still hasn't given up on you. Poplar Fruit said, do you understand now? Don't be sad. Is it useful? Duan Xueqing suddenly asked. Poplar Fruit was a little confused. Is there any meaning in saying who is the mastermind? Duan Xueqing asked again. Whether I am sad or not, what does it have to do with Liang Zhenglin? You still don't understand, do you? It's not that I don't understand, but I really think that we are suitable to be good friends. Poplar Fruit scratched his head and said, forget it, you don't need to say any more. Duan Xueqing hung up the phone. Hello, hello? Poplar Fruit shouted twice and was very depressed. What do you mean by, is there any meaning? Poplar Fruit pinched his palms, and the abrasions on his palms were still faintly painful. He said to himself, I suffered so much today to ask this question, and you think it's meaningless? Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations, everyone use votes to smash the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 279. After putting down the phone, Poplar Fruit glanced at Kiki, who seemed to be safe. He then picked up the key, pushed the door open and walked out. This time he didn't have to knock on the door. He used the key to open Song Jiwen's door and walked into his bedroom. Da-da-da. The roar of the machine gun was incessant. Song Jiwen was actually using the loudspeaker, and the sound was so loud. Yonggwa reached out and turned off the screen. Then she turned Song Jiwen's head, who had been protesting, around. Liang Zhenglin, do you remember that kid? Poplar Fruit said seriously. Of course. How could I not remember? Song Jiwen pointed at the computer and said helplessly, can't you let me finish this game first? At this time, the sound of Song Jiwen's character dying came from the speaker. He covered his forehead and said, it's over. I'm going to be scolded by my teammates again. Do me a favor. I want to mess with Liang Zhenglin. Poplar Fruit ignored him and continued. Okay. Mess with him? How do you want to mess with him? Song Jiwen was interested and said, beat him up? Or ask a few buddies to give him a Badgers game? No need. Poplar Fruit said, just ask someone to check his company's fire protection, sanitation, and so on. Wow. So ruthless? Song Jiwen shouted. What did he do to make you so angry? I've never seen you take the initiative to ask me to help you mess with someone. He was very quick-witted. Before Poplar Fruit could answer, he asked, he can't be the culprit, right? The one who asked Cheonjuan to secretly take pictures of your back? Yeah. Poplar Fruit nodded gently and asked, can you check? No problem. It's more difficult to deal with his father's company. His company, hee. How long has it been open? It's easy. Moreover, the buttocks of those who sell cosmetics are definitely not clean. I guarantee that I will be able to find out everything. Song Jiwen smiled and said, then I'll leave this matter to you? Poplar Fruit asked. If he's heartless, I won't be righteous. Of course, you don't have to do anything illegal. Just investigate and give him some trouble. Song Jiwen patted his chest confidently and said, no problem, leave it to me. I guarantee you'll be able to vent your anger. Okay, keep playing. Poplar Fruit patted him on the shoulder and helped him turn on the computer screen again. Returning to his residence, Poplar Fruit laid on the couch and let out a long sigh. He felt sore all over and didn't even want to move a finger. Actually, it was not because he was tired from chasing after Cheonjuan. That little bit of running had not even reached Poplar Fruit's basic level of exercise. The reason why he was tired was mainly because his heart was tired. The problem was with Duan Xueqing. Ever since Poplar Fruit had seen Duan Xueqing at the welcoming ceremony, he felt that their temperaments were quite compatible. He could understand Duan Xueqing's coldness, and Duan Xueqing could also accept Poplar Fruit's occasional nagging. However, since then, Poplar Fruit had always regarded Duan Xueqing as a good friend. Of course, at that time, it was also partly because he already had a girlfriend. But now that he thought about it, he and Duan Xueqing were indeed only friends. Because of the past year, after breaking up with Lu Yunran, Poplar Fruit's chances of seeing Duan Xueqing increased instead of decreasing. However, Poplar Fruit himself still did not consider the possibility of a marriage with Duan Xueqing. Although he was a little slow when it came to relationships, he believed that his feelings were not wrong. Two people could be very good friends, but if it went further, it would not be right. Poplar Fruit was a little upset because Duan Xueqing's attitude was too resolute. He really did not want to lose a good friend because of this kind of thing, but did he have to force himself to agree? They could still be boyfriend and girlfriend, not good friends. Her heart was tired, and she was injured, so Yonggwa didn't want to move anymore. He even emptied his mind and forced himself not to think about anything, giving himself time to breathe. After an unknown amount of time, Poplar Fruit suddenly felt that his fingers were wet, as if there was a thin leaf stirring it. Poplar Fruit turned his head and saw his precious daughter lying there with her butt raised. Of course, it was not her doing it. The one licking Poplar Fruit's fingers was the little golden retriever, Gold. Kiki was an accomplice. She was watching from the side with a smile, so happy that she could not find a side to look at. Well, you two little guys, instead of playing properly, you came to tease Daddy, right? Poplar Fruit laughed and suddenly sat up, saying with a serious face, "Yes, it's Gold." Kiki betrayed Gold without hesitation. Woof woof. Gold barked softly, as if protesting that its teammates were not being helpful. "What's wrong? You two little guys." Poplar Fruit felt that Gold wanted something. Otherwise, why would it lick his fingers for no reason? Although these two little guys often caused trouble for him. Goldie jumped over the wall that Yonggwa had built with boxes. Then it used its front paws to grab the bowl that it had placed in the corner of the wall. Clang 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 clang. Hee hee hee. Kiki heard the sound, sat up straight, pointed at Gold's direction and laughed foolishly at her father. Poplar Fruit saw and understood. He laughed and said, "Oh, I forgot to prepare dinner for you." When he came back today, he was so troubled by Duan Xueqing's matter that he forgot everything. Gold's dinner. Kiki had to drink milk, take a bath and sleep later. If it wasn't for Gold, Poplar Fruit really forgot everything and just wanted to lie on the sofa for the night. Forget it, I don't want to think about it. What should be done is done. Life still needs to be lived. Poplar Fruit stood up, stretched, and said to himself. After washing the rice and washing the pot, Poplar Fruit began to cook. Although it was a little late, he hadn't eaten dinner yet. It was also a good opportunity to make some fresh dog food for Gold. It wasn't nutritious enough to eat dog food all the time. When he was bathing Kiki, Poplar Fruit realized that he hadn't taken care of Kiki for a few days. No wonder Fong Beibei complained to him. He was too much these days. He always left Kiki with her and did this and that outside alone. Poplar Fruit counted that it had been almost a week since he went to the Guo family martial arts school to look for trouble, if the weekend volunteer work was included. He wasn't very qualified to be a father. After bathing Kiki, Poplar Fruit sneaked in with Gold. When he went to bed tonight, Gold would definitely climb into his bed. He couldn't chase it away. He might as well wash it clean and sleep with him. That way he would feel more comfortable. After washing it in the water, he used a hairdryer to dry its hair. Gold grimaced in pain from the hairdryer, but it especially enjoyed the feeling. Poplar Fruit turned off the hairdryer, and it even stretched out its forelimbs to touch Poplar Fruit's hand. Now Gold's hair was gradually growing longer, and it was becoming more and more golden. It was no longer white and fluffy like when it was just brought home. Gold had also grown up. Poplar Fruit silently said in his heart. Yes, together with Kiki, it had grown up. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 280. The days pass one by one. Poplar Fruit's life returned to its usual peaceful state, but this peace was only temporary. Duan Xueqing continued to maintain a cold war with him. Their relationship seemed to have hit rock bottom. Although it was calm on the surface, it did not mean that there were hidden waves surging behind the scenes. Song Jiwen was having dinner with some of his friends who used to live in the same compound as him. They were discussing how to set up a big net for Liang Zhenglin and wait for an opportunity to cast it. As for Poplar Fruit himself, how could he have known that someone he could not afford to offend at this stage was eyeing him? A big net was slowly creeping towards him. But this was all in the future. Poplar Fruit had just received a call when another one came. Let's talk about the previous phone call. It was the good news from Cinda's translation team. After a few days of negotiations, Qian Shou had decided to accept Cinda's advertising investment of up to 800,000 yuan. In their experience in micromovies and short videos, this advertising investment was considered very large. Yao Dehua was also very generous. He made a promise that if Qian Shou could come up with a script that satisfied him, or produce a video with good effects, then it would not be a problem to increase the advertising investment. Qian Shou brought people back to Beijing to continue planning the script. Poplar Fruit had nothing to do with the matters here for the time being, so he picked up the second call. The second call was from his mother. Poplar Fruit, what time is it now? You're still dawdling in Yangcheng. Are you coming back or not? His mother shouted over the phone. That's right. Kiki's first birthday was coming soon. Poplar Fruit looked at the time. It was already the 24th. In 4 days, no, in 3 days, it would be Kiki's birthday. He had been so busy that he had almost forgotten about it. Seeing Kiki playing beside him, Poplar Fruit chuckled. She probably did not realize that she was almost 1 year old. Kiki probably did not have the concept of birthdays, right? It was okay. After this, she would look forward to her birthday every day. What are you laughing at? What a heartless fellow. Su Jinfeng heard Poplar Fruit's soft laughter over the phone before she got a response. She immediately got angry. No. Poplar Fruit quickly apologized and promised his mother that he would bring her cutest granddaughter home tomorrow. After putting down the phone, Poplar Fruit didn't dare to stay idle. He quickly began to pack his things. Going back to the countryside was different from going to the US. There were a lot of things that could not be bought in their hometown. So Poplar Fruit had to pack up some of Kiki's necessities. However, this time he didn't have to worry about the trouble of bringing a bunch of things home. Because in the back of the Land Rover, even if he brought the pots and pans home, they could all fit. Kiki, you can't bring so many toys. Why don't we pick a few that you like the most and bring them home? Poplar Fruit squatted down and discussed with Kiki. Kiki didn't know what he meant. She raised her head and saw her father stuffing a few of her favorite toys into the bag. She suddenly got anxious. Kiki thought that her father was going to pack up her toys and throw them away. Kiki hugged the Barbie doll tightly with one hand and used the other hand to support herself on the ground. She quickly crawled over to the bag and tried to take back the toys that Poplar Fruit had just put in. What are you doing? Poplar Fruit didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he picked her up. It was not easy to get the toys from her, but she wanted to take them back. Wouldn't that be a waste of all his efforts? Kiki's. Kiki pouted with a stubborn look on her face. She pointed at the toys in the bag and said seriously to her father, "Yes, it's Kiki's." Poplar Fruit rubbed Kiki's little head and said with a smile, "Then Papa, did you take Kiki's?" Kiki said with a little grievance. Poplar Fruit finally understood. It turned out that Kiki still didn't know what was going on. She thought that if he took it away, he wouldn't give it back to her. Poplar Fruit said with a smile, "Aren't we going back to our hometown tomorrow? To see Grandpa and Grandma?" Grandpa? Kiki tilted her head and thought for a while. Only then did she remember Yang Tai's appearance behind this title in her fragmented memory. Then she thought of the big yellow dog, Afu, who left a deeper impression on her. Foo. Kiki asked doubtfully. Yes, when we go back to our hometown, we can still see Afu. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. So today, Dad is going to pack up your things. When the time comes, we'll go back to our hometown together. And Kiki still couldn't understand what going back to her hometown had to do with her toys. She blinked her big watery eyes and looked at her father. Tomorrow, when we get home tomorrow, Dad will give it back to you, okay? Poplar Fruit could only explain like this. At this moment, Kiki finally understood. She thought for a while, giving her father a day off was not a big deal, so she nodded and said, okay. Poplar Fruit wiped his sweat. It was really difficult to explain things to his daughter. But at this time, Kiki suddenly stretched out her free right hand and waved it in front of her father's eyes. What is this? Poplar Fruit looked at Kiki's right hand with a puzzled look and asked. Pinky promise. Kiki said seriously. Poplar Fruit fainted. He was sure that he had never taught her this thing. Then it was obvious who taught her. Bebe. Bebe said to make 4. Kiki said while recalling. Yes, to be honest. Poplar Fruit was amused by his daughter's non-standard pronunciation. He corrected her. 4. Kiki said with certainty. Okay, I won't argue with you. Poplar Fruit smiled, stretched out his right pinky, and hooked it on Kiki's small pinky. Pinky promise jump up. Kiki shook her hand, but she couldn't shake her father's big hand. She said, 100 years of happiness. Pinky promise hang. Poplar Fruit thought for a while, but still said it like Kiki, jump up 100 years. After all, the word hang was not suitable for a child to hear. After the pinky promise, Kiki finally smiled with satisfaction. Poplar Fruit smiled, kissed his daughter's face, and said with a smile, why, you like it a lot, right? Kiki twisted her neck to avoid it, and giggled nonstop. Goldie, who was chewing on its own emoya bone, raised its head in confusion and looked at the father and daughter, not understanding what was going on. Goldie's emoya bone was a high-end product that Poplar Fruit had brought back from abroad. It was made of an unknown gel, colored and odorless plastic. Humans couldn't sense any smell. But as soon as Poplar Fruit took it out, Goldie would immediately rush over like it was possessed, wagging its tail nonstop. Therefore, Poplar Fruit often used this emoya bone as a reward to teach Goldie to do things. For example, just now, when Poplar Fruit asked Goldie to get the rag, it went over obediently. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 281. The Land Rover wasn't considered a luxury car in Yangcheng, but it attracted the attention of countless people the moment it set foot in the small county town of his hometown. The huge body, the domineering front of the car, and the roar of the engine was like a tiger in the mountains. It was simply too cool. Back in the countryside, the Land Rover's super high chassis finally showed its advantage. Some muddy puddles or rocky paths could still be rolled over by the Land Rover. Unlike those muddy cars, they had to be careful, and even had to get out of the car to check the road conditions before daring to move. Third aunt. Did you just come back from work? Poplar Fruit rolled down the window and greeted the village woman. The road in the village was a little narrow. For safety reasons, Poplar Fruit stopped the car and let the people and motorcycles in front pass first. Little Poplar Fruit. When Third Aunt saw that the person driving the car was actually Yanghua, she opened her mouth wide in surprise. You bought this car? Haha, yes. Poplar Fruit laughed. Looking at Third Aunt's shocked, worshipful and fearful eyes, he finally understood why people said, riches and honor don't return home. It's like walking in the night. This kind of feeling made it easy for people to get carried away. Little Poplar Fruit is promising. When Poplar Fruit was young, Third Aunt helped take care of Poplar Fruit. Now Third Aunt smiled happily. You bought such a beautiful car, you're promising. You flatter me, Third Aunt. Oh right, my mom should be home, right? Poplar Fruit asked. Yes, I just came out with your family. Third Aunt smiled and said, your mom keeps asking you when you're coming home. Hurry up and go home. Okay. Oh right, Third Aunt, come over for dinner later, okay? I brought back Yangcheng sausages and American blueberry jam. Come and try it. Poplar Fruit smiled. All right. I won't stand on ceremony with you. Little Poplar Fruit, you've made a name for yourself. After saying goodbye, Third Aunt went back happily. When they got home, a naughty child had already run to Poplar Fruit's house to inform Yang Tai and the others. Brother Guo is back and he drove a big car. Yang Tai and Su Jinfeng, who was grinning from ear to ear, hurriedly ran to the entrance of the courtyard. They pulled open the two large iron gates to welcome their son and granddaughter back. Mom. Dad. Poplar Fruit stuck his head out of the car window and shouted. It's good that you're back. It's good that you're back. Su Jinfeng nodded, the smile on her face almost drowning her wrinkles. He drove back to the courtyard, stopped the car, pulled the handbrake and pulled out the key. Only then did Poplar Fruit jump out of the car. Where's my Kiki? Su Jinfeng asked anxiously. Don't worry, your granddaughter is in the car. Poplar Fruit smiled. He went around to the front passenger seat, gently unbuckled the seatbelt, and carried the sleeping Kiki out of the car. After driving for more than 6 hours, no matter how much Kiki liked the feeling of driving at lightning speed, she couldn't resist the sleepiness. After handing Kiki over to his mom who was waiting by the side, Poplar Fruit began to move the things out of the car one by one. These 2 boxes are Kiki's things. I'll put them upstairs later. Poplar Fruit smiled. Then he moved several beautifully wrapped boxes out of the car. Gifts. Yang Linjie jumped behind Poplar Fruit and clapped his hands excitedly. These aren't yours. Poplar Fruit smiled and reminded him. Don't open them, do you hear me? These gifts were all for Kiki. Before Poplar Fruit came back, he mentioned Kiki's birthday to a few good friends. As a result, they hurriedly sent Kiki's gifts over. Yao Dehua, Song Jiwen, Uncle Jean, and so on. Feng Beibei was originally prepared to celebrate Kiki's birthday. She didn't expect Poplar Fruit to bring Kiki back to her hometown. She could only ask Poplar Fruit to go back to school to bring Kiki's gifts back. Of course, these gifts couldn't be opened. They had to wait until Kiki's birthday to let Kiki open them. Feng Beibei had repeatedly reminded her. Poplar Fruit thought of Zheng Yujie again. Although she was far away in Beijing, she didn't forget Kiki's birthday. When Poplar Fruit was in America, he told her about Kiki's birthday plans. So when she parted ways with Poplar Fruit in Beijing, she asked for the address of Poplar Fruit's hometown. She said that there would be a big surprise for Kiki. Poplar Fruit was looking forward to it. Where's Xiao Duan? Why didn't she come back with you? Su Jinfeng came over and asked. When she mentioned Duan Xueqing, Poplar Fruit had a headache. He stammered. She has something to do, and she can't leave work. Don't lie to me. Su Jinfeng knew her son well. She saw through him at a glance. Don't tell me you had a fight with Xiao Duan? She's a good girl. Why did you have to make her leave? Poplar Fruit wanted to tell his mother the truth. There was really nothing between them. But he hesitated and said, Mom, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. Su Jinfeng's eyebrows were raised. She almost flipped out at Poplar Fruit. But considering that Kiki was sleeping in her arms, she couldn't do anything. She could only mutter, Will you take care of it, or are you lying to me? Forget it, I'll teach you a lesson later. She's such a good girl. Xiao Jia, this is your present. Poplar Fruit took out a big box from the car and smiled. Uncle bought it from America. Yang Linjie happily took it. When he saw the packaging, he screamed, Transformers! It's the original Optimus Prime. Poplar Fruit added with a smile. Unfortunately, Yang Linjie didn't listen at all. He hugged the toy and ran back to his room to play with it. Dad, this is the ginseng that I brought back from America. Poplar Fruit took out 2 beautifully packaged boxes from the car and handed them to Yang Tai, saying, It's definitely authentic. It's many times better than what you can buy in the city. You can always cut a few slices at home and use it to make chicken soup. It's good for your heart and blood vessels. Especially you have high blood pressure. Drink this soup often and you'll be fine after a while. When Poplar Fruit was in America, he had asked the doctor there. He knew that it had such effects, so he bought it back. How much is this? Yang Tai took it and asked, Why are you spending so much money? It's okay. Poplar Fruit smiled. You know that I've made some money. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to afford this car. I bought things for you and Mom, so you should keep it. Don't be stingy with it. I'll buy more for you in the future. Oh right. Poplar Fruit suddenly remembered and asked, where are my sister and brother-in-law? They didn't come back? Didn't you say that they set up a factory in the village? Yang Tai shook his head and said, those two are busy people. They're busier than you. They go out every day and don't come back for a week. In the past, they could still stay at home for a meal. Now they haven't eaten at home for more than a month. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 282. Those who want to do something big will get busier and busier. Poplar Fruit smiled and comforted his father. Look at brother-in-law's business. Isn't it getting bigger and bigger? Last month's net profit was almost 800,000. If they didn't work hard, how could they earn so much money? Poplar Fruit realized that he didn't understand his sister at all in the past 6 months. Not to mention Yang Chongguan. Even Poplar Fruit felt ashamed of himself. The idea of setting up the factory was indeed Poplar Fruit's idea, but everything was under Yang Ping's control. Compared to Yang Ping, Yang Chongguan was more of an executor. Yang Ping assigned tasks and Yang Chongguan would handle them. The tasks that required brains and decision-making were all taken care of by Yang Ping. In the past 6 months, Yang Ping had changed too much. She had changed from my daughter, who was content with the status quo, to a manager who could or dared to challenge difficulties. Under her management, the Yang family's factory and 2 stores were operating in an orderly manner, and the turnover was increasing day by day. Perhaps Yang Ping was a natural-born businesswoman, but she lacked an opportunity and capital to display her abilities. The more outstanding Yang Ping was, the more urgent Yang Chongguan felt. He was also forcing himself to improve. Otherwise, if he was left behind by his wife, he wouldn't be able to raise his head in front of others in the future. I heard that the county magistrate is going to be promoted. Where will he be transferred to? Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. The last time he called Yang Ping had mentioned it. He won't be transferred anywhere. He's still in our county, Yang Tai said in a muffled voice. He didn't really care about these officialdom matters, but he had heard Yang Ping and Yang Chongguan mention it when they were chatting. Oh, Poplar Fruit suddenly realized and smiled. The county magistrate became the county secretary. That's amazing. He hasn't been the county magistrate for more than 2 years, right? After Kiki's birthday, I'll visit him with my sister. Yeah, Yang Tai replied casually. He was not interested in this topic at all. After resting for a night, or rather, after her mother nagged her for a whole night, Yang Guo woke up the next day and decided to bring her daughter to visit Wu Yu's grave. During the Qingming festival, which was the beginning of the month, Poplar Fruit and Kiki were both in America. He only asked his family to help him change a prettier stone tablet for Wu Yu. He had promised Wu Yu that he would bring Kiki over to visit her, but he did not fulfill his promise. Therefore, no matter what, Poplar Fruit had to go there today. Kiki, this is your mother, Poplar Fruit said to Kiki as he pointed at a tombstone under a Chinese redbud tree. Kiki hugged her father's neck and looked at him in confusion. Then, she looked at her father, not understanding what he meant. In Kiki's mind, she did not have the concept of a mother, although her father had mentioned it to her in the past. Your mother passed away after giving birth to you, Poplar Fruit said sadly. You don't understand yet. You will slowly understand in the future. Anyway, remember that your mother is resting here. Chi-Chi nodded as if she understood. She could feel her father's emotions fluctuating, so she obediently stuck her little face to her father's neck. It was as if she was looking for someone to rely on, and at the same time, she was also giving her father something to rely on. Good daughter. Poplar Fruit kissed Kiki's hair. He hugged Kiki and walked around the tombstone twice. The tombstone was made by the most famous craftsman in the county. The words were exactly the same as Poplar Fruit's tombstone, but it looked a lot more formal. After setting up the tombstone, Wu Yu's grave was filled with new soil. Fortunately, the purple thorns behind the tombstone were not damaged. After half a month, under the nourishment of the spring wind and spring rain, a few green grass grew on the new soil. If it was in the past or other places, Poplar Fruit would only look at them with appreciation. However, today was different. He came to pay his respects. Even if it was not the Qingming festival, he still had to pull out these weeds. Poplar Fruit squatted down and put Kiki down. She was wearing small shoes, so Poplar Fruit was not worried. Kiki liked to be clean. She was not like other children. As long as they were on the ground, their whole heart would be immersed in joy. Kiki looked at her cute little shoes, and then looked at the soil around her. She was a little unwilling to move. Poplar Fruit smiled. He hugged Kiki with one hand to prevent her from losing her balance and falling. Then he reached out with his other hand and pinched the roots of a blade of grass. He pulled it up by the roots, shook off the soil, and threw it to the side. Growing in the soil, returning to the soil. Poplar Fruit was not as merciful as Tang Xuanzang. He could not even bear to kill an ant. He just casually threw the grass to the side. Nature would not ignore it. It would be decomposed by the microorganisms in the soil. In the end, the nutrients would be absorbed into the earth and grow new life. Kiki carefully watched her father's actions. After seeing her father pull out 2 blades of grass, she also squatted down with interest. Kiki was not very stable when she squatted down. She almost fell to the ground. Poplar Fruit quickly supported her. Giggling, Kiki also reached out, grabbed a blade of grass, and pulled it up with force. However, the roots of the grass were firmly rooted, and Chi-Chi only managed to tear off a leaf when she tried to pull it out. She staggered and leaned against her father's arm. Kiki opened her chubby little hand. There was a blade of grass lying in her small palm. The juice from the broken blade dyed her little hand a little green. Look, look! Kiki giggled. She raised her little hand high, indicating her father to look at her masterpiece. Aha, Kiki is amazing! Poplar Fruit remembered Fong Beibei's praise-teaching method. He kissed Kiki and praised her with a smile. Poplar Fruit was very happy. This was not an act. Because although Kiki might not understand, she really was weeding her mother's grave. Another one. Poplar Fruit encouraged. Chi-Chi stretched out her hand again and grabbed a blade of grass. The place she grabbed was still wrong. It was still the top of the blade of grass. Like before, she could only pull off half a leaf. However, Yanggu didn't care. He felt that if his daughter could help, then she was very sensible. She pulled hard and broke it. Kiki staggered again and sat back. Poplar Fruit quickly supported her little butt. Kiki felt that this feeling was very good. She smiled from ear to ear. She happily pulled at the front. Poplar Fruit also followed behind to clean up the mess. They pulled out the remaining half of the blade of grass. The father and daughter finished cleaning the grave in a happy laughter. You probably didn't want to see Chi-Chi crying either. Chi-Chi being able to smile and live a carefree life was Wuyu's only wish before she left. This might be better. Poplar Fruit held his daughter and looked at Wuyu's tombstone thinking. When Kiki thought about it in the future, her mother's memory would not be sad. Instead, it would be warm and happy. That was enough. Chapter 283. I heard that Ertai's old man is doing well. He drove a big car back. Poplar Fruit was carrying Kiki back from outside the village when he heard a few old grannies gossiping under the big banyan tree at the entrance of the village. His ears were sharp, he could hear them talking about him from far away. Yes, my family's little black stone came back and checked on the internet. That car is at least 1 million yuan. TSK in our village, you can build 5 of the most beautiful houses. An old granny said enviously. How do you know that they didn't build a house? Didn't they just build 3 floors at the end of last year? Another old granny was very proud of her well-informed information, showing off. I think that their old man really made a lot of money in the provincial capital. Ping, do you know? I know. Didn't Ertai's eldest son go back to the village with her husband to set up a factory? My family's 3rd son went to beg for a long time before he was allowed to enter the factory. Last month he was given a salary of 2,000 yuan. Without their family's old man. Ping is just an accountant in a small company. Where would she get the money to set up a factory? All of this was given by their family's old man. I heard from Ertai's wife. Hearing this, Poplar Fruit didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It was all because of his mother, this loudspeaker, who revealed all of the family's secrets. Hey you guys, if the old man is so capable, why didn't he bring back a wife? Suddenly the topic changed to Poplar Fruit's marriage. Last time, didn't the old man hold a banquet and bring back his daughter? Where's his wife? You don't understand, right? The rich man's body trembled. How could he still care about his wife? I reckon that his first child was a daughter, and he was not satisfied, so he already dumped his wife. A person who looked like a sister-in-law made up a story as if it was true. Hey, Lee family's second sister-in-law, what nonsense are you talking about? The old granny who just revealed the news said discontentedly, everyone, don't make blind guesses. Poplar Fruit is a good man, he values relationships and righteousness. The woman who gave birth to his child died of dystocia. He even set up a grave for her in the back of the mountain. I went to see it. What a good child. Really? That's incredible. The sister-in-law said in disbelief. That person has already left. Has he found a new one? Not yet. I don't see it now. The old granny said firmly. That's so worrying. The eldest sister-in-law patted her thigh and sighed, as if she felt the same way. Isn't it? Jean Feng ran to the provincial capital several times because she was worried about her son. The old granny sighed. He's so rich. Not to mention having a child. Even if he has someone outside, he won't have to worry about not being able to find a wife. An old granny said. I think this child is quite honest. My granddaughter is going to graduate from university this year. Do you think Jean Feng's family will agree to be together? Come on. You don't have to worry about other people's hearts. With his qualifications, if he takes it out, those who come to propose marriage will probably be slapped all the way to the edge of the village. Poplar Fruit didn't continue listening. These old grannies and aunties were really too gossipy. He didn't even have the strength to complain. It was better to leave quickly. When he returned home, young Tai was already busy preparing to take the old cow out for a walk. Young Tai, who had been facing the yellow soil and back to the sky for most of his life, still couldn't let go of this land complex. Although he didn't have to farm anymore, he still took the big cow home for a walk every day. Other people in the city walked dogs, but he walked the cow. It felt a little lofty. Dad. Poplar Fruit greeted with a smile. Have you had breakfast? I have. Your mother made porridge. Young Tai said with a smile. Kiki, do you want to ride the big cow? No need. Poplar Fruit ignored Kiki's expectant gaze and smiled. She hasn't eaten anything in the morning. Let her try again after you sneak the big cow home. I want to ride it. Young Linjia didn't know how he heard Poplar Fruit's conversation. He ran out of the kitchen like a wisp of smoke. Ouch. Young Linjia suddenly fell to the ground and rolled into the mud, probably because he got caught in a crack in the brick road. If he was a child in the city, he would have been crying. Young Linjia didn't wait for Poplar Fruit to help him up. He got up on his own, not caring at all. There was some mud on his body and trousers. He didn't even wipe it off and continued to run to the big cow. Come back quickly, you haven't finished your porridge. Su Jinfeng rushed out of the kitchen with a bowl of porridge in her hands. I want to ride the big cow. Young Linjia stomped his legs and begged with a sobbing tone. He was also strange. He didn't cry when he fell down like a dog. Instead, he cried when they didn't let him play. No. Su Jinfeng shouted loudly. Old man, hurry up and take this cow away from me. I don't believe that I can't teach you a lesson today. Don't eat. Poplar Fruit finally understood where he learned his stick education from. After seeing Fong Beibei's amiable persuasion and reward education, Poplar Fruit felt very uncomfortable listening to his mother's conversation. He smiled and said, Mom, you should also stop talking. He went forward and bent down, patted the shoulder of young Linjia who was about to cry. He smiled and said, Xiao Jia, go eat your porridge first. Be a good boy and wait for the big cow to come back. I'll let you ride it with your sister, okay? When Poplar Fruit was persuading young Linjia, Kiki looked at young Linjia's brother, and then looked at the big cow thoughtfully. Okay. Young Linjia pouted and nodded his head with his nose twitching. Poplar Fruit held the porridge and fed Kiki under the big banyan tree in the yard. Suddenly, Kiki stood up on the bamboo bed with her father's arm. She held her father's arm and then pulled it down. Poplar Fruit knew what Kiki meant. She wanted to whisper something to her father, so Poplar Fruit smiled and turned his head. Papa! Kiki's mouth was filled with the fragrance of porridge. She moved closer to her father's ear and said, What's wrong? Poplar Fruit asked with a smile while unconsciously digging the porridge in the bowl with a small spoon. Kiki leaned forward and accidentally touched her father's ear with her sticky mouth. Poplar Fruit didn't immediately wipe it with his hand, but listened patiently. Papa, Kiki is so good. Yes, Kiki is the most obedient. Daddy likes obedient Kiki the most. Poplar Fruit responded with a smile. Brother Jia, you're not obedient. Kiki will eat the porridge obediently. Kiki continued to move closer to her father's ear and said, Kiki will play with Nyo-Nyo, okay? Poplar Fruit finally understood what his daughter meant from her intermittent words. Kiki will eat the porridge obediently. She's more obedient than Brother Jia. Daddy will let Kiki ride the big cow, okay? That's right. Poplar Fruit laughed. Today, Kiki suddenly ate the porridge obediently. Poplar Fruit thought that she had changed. She was so obedient, but it turned out that she wanted to play with the big cow. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 284. Land Rover. Yang Ping and Yang Chongguan came back at around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Yang Chongguan went straight to the car as soon as he entered the house. He walked around the car and looked at it carefully. He looked like he was possessed and wanted to stick his whole body to the car. He heard that you bought this car. He has been looking forward to you driving it back day and night. Yang Ping smiled. She didn't understand why these men liked this kind of muscle car. Poplar Fruit the key. Yang Chongguan used to drool when he saw the Land Rovers driven by the God of Fortune in the army. This time he could finally play with it. He couldn't wait to tell Poplar Fruit. Catch. Poplar Fruit smiled and threw the car key over. Poplar Fruit understood his brother-in-law's behavior very well. In fact, it wasn't just his brother-in-law. Since he came back yesterday, there had been a lot of guests coming to his house. Most of the men wanted to take a look at the car. There were also a few young men who used to play with Poplar Fruit. They couldn't wait to play with the car. They didn't talk much and asked Poplar Fruit for the keys. Poplar Fruit didn't trust them, so they all sat in the front passenger seat. As for his brother-in-law, a decent driver who often drove, Poplar Fruit threw the key casually and felt relieved. Sister, the factory and shop are doing well now. Why didn't you buy a good car? Poplar Fruit smiled. Yang Ping and Yang Chongguan came back with a motorcycle today. They didn't look like big bosses at all. We've only been doing business for half a year. Won't people drool if we buy a car? Yang Ping said. Besides, there are many places to spend money in the factory and shop. We just bought a small pickup truck for the factory last month. Don't think that we're earning a lot. We still have to save money. Yang Ping had a good view of the big picture when it came to doing business. Now she dared to take risks. However, she still couldn't change her habit of being a little woman. She had to calculate everything clearly. To put it bluntly, she was calculative about every ounce. That's not how it works. Poplar Fruit smiled. When you're doing business, you still need to have a front. When you go in and out, it'll be convenient for you to do things wherever you go. When you talk about business, the other party will also think highly of you. He had learned this from Yao Dehua. Xinda translators had held an annual meeting and booked the entire resort. In fact, they were just spending money to maintain their image. However, the effect was surprisingly good. They ate, drank, and played in the resort, and the people in the branch companies all felt that the head office was awesome enough. They also felt proud of themselves, and the cohesion of the entire company skyrocketed in those few days. Look, you're riding a motorcycle. Don't talk about County Magistrate Chun. Oh, I should call him Secretary Chun. Don't talk about Secretary Chun. Even if you're looking for a section chief of some bureau. Do you think the guards will let you in? Poplar Fruit laughed. So it's necessary to buy a car. It's not that you're greedy for pleasure, but it's really helpful to your business. Okay. Yang Ping pondered for a moment and nodded in agreement. Oh yeah, later, I'll transfer half of my shares back to your name. Poplar Fruit smiled. What are you going to do? Yang Ping jumped up in excitement. Why are you withdrawing your shares again? Sis, don't worry. Look, you've scared Kiki. Poplar Fruit laughed. Your temper is exactly the same as Mom's. He comforted Kiki and put her in the baby walker. He let her play with Yang Lingjia, Fu and Goldie in the yard. Then you have to tell me. Why did you suddenly quit? Our business has just begun. Yang Ping said with dissatisfaction. No sis, this is already your business. I didn't contribute at all. Now you're earning 800,000 a month. That's all because of your hard work. Poplar Fruit laughed. I'm holding on to the shares like this. It's not a good idea to just pay dividends. It's better to give it to you as soon as possible. Poplar Fruit thought about it for a long time. It wasn't that he didn't care about the hundreds of thousands of dividends. Although his current net worth was far more than that amount, and Cinda had given him a share of the dividends. The reason why he wanted to withdraw his shares was that he didn't want his family to turn against each other, because of money in the future. Now, it was true that his sister and the others were willing to give Poplar Fruit dividends. However, this business was getting bigger and bigger. If they could earn 10 million a year in the future, would they still think the same? Poplar Fruit had only invested 200,000 in the initial stage, and then reaped the benefits. Anyone would have an opinion. Since he didn't have to worry about food or clothes, why should he hold on to this little bit of money? If he were to give up now, Yang Ping and Yang Chongguan would remember Poplar Fruit's kindness for the rest of their lives. No matter how rich or powerful they were, the relationship between the family would not change. Don't say that this idea was too realistic. Humans were like this. When they had no money, sisters-in-law would quarrel over trivial matters. When they had money, money would be the source of disputes. Money could maintain relationships, but it could also destroy relationships. It depended on how people dealt with it. Don't think so badly of your sister. We're earning money now, but we'll never forget who pointed us in the right direction and who invested all his savings in us. Yang Ping said emotionally. Sis. Poplar Fruit pressed Yang Ping's shoulder and said with a smile. Don't be so emotional. Look, I bought a car now. Do you think I'm someone who lacks money? What's more, we're no longer on the same path. Why do you have to insist on it? I've already made up my mind. If you don't want it, then I'll transfer the shares to little Jia. Your family anyway. Hey, why are you so stubborn? Yang Ping said sadly. It's not easy for us siblings to invest in this business together. How can you just leave us alone like that? We've only just started. Hey. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Sis, I just want to withdraw my shares and not participate in your normal operations. I didn't say that I don't care about you. You're still my sister. If you have any difficulties, if you don't look for me, who else can you look for? But if you do this, how can we repay you for the support you gave us back then? Yang Ping said as she stomped her foot. Haha, I'm not short of money. My life is comfortable. What do I need you to repay me for? Poplar Fruit said with a smile. If you want to repay me, just stay at home and help me take care of my parents. Then the whole family will be healthy and happy. That's the best way to repay me. Let's not talk about this anymore, Poplar Fruit said as he changed the topic. Chen Shu, have you visited him since he got promoted? Not yet. Your brother-in-law went to visit him once last month. His promotion happened in the past 2 weeks. I haven't had the chance to congratulate him yet, Yang Ping said as she shook her head. Then you have to go once. Favors can only be continued when there's contact, Poplar Fruit said as he pondered. I just brought back a few boxes of authentic American ginseng from America. How about this? I'll give him a call later and see if he's free today. Chapter 285. While his sister was still talking, Poplar Fruit's attention was attracted by Kiki. When Kiki was in Yangcheng, she was very close to Goldie. Sometimes, even when Poplar Fruit commanded Goldie, it was not as effective as Kiki. Today, in front of Big Brother Jia, Chi-Chi decided to show off. She tiptoed out of the baby walker and stuck her head out. She looked at Gold and said in a childish voice, "Sit." Goldie looked at Kiki and wagged its tail. Then it supported itself with its front legs and sat down with its back legs. Young Lingjia was stunned. He clapped his hands and shouted, "Wow! Sister Kiki, you're amazing." After being praised, Kiki jumped happily and continued to show off. Lie down. This time not only did Goldie lie down, but the dog, Afu, also lay down with its front legs stretched out. These were all recorded when Poplar Fruit trained Goldie. However, it was obvious that Kiki had surpassed the master. Young Linjia's mouth formed an O shape. He said excitedly, I'll do it, I'll do it. Get up. Get up. Young Linjia jumped and squatted down. No matter how he commanded, the two dogs did not move. They did not care about him at all. How can this be? Young Linjia pouted, unable to figure it out no matter how hard he thought about it. He just stood there, circling his sister, observing and studying her. After Yang Chongguan drove 2 rounds outside the village, he heard Yang Ping talk about Poplar Fruit withdrawing his shares. He came over to persuade Poplar Fruit. However, Poplar Fruit looked as if he had already made up his mind. He smiled and was not moved. The two of them tried to persuade Poplar Fruit. In their excitement, their voices were a little loud. It was as if they were quarreling. Young Linjia, who was playing with Afu and Goldie with Kiki, turned his head and cried loudly. He ran over and hugged Yang Ping's thigh, crying very sadly. Kiki was baffled, but it was as if crying was contagious. Young Linjia cried so hard that Kiki also cried softly. She pushed the baby walker and ran to her father's side. As she passed by, she glanced at Young Linjia and the others in fear. She raised her 2 small hands, wanting her father to hug her. The scene became a mess. Yang Ping and Yang Chongguan had no time to talk. They hurriedly coaxed their precious son. Poplar Fruit didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He carried Kiki out of the car and whispered to her, Daddy is fine, Daddy is fine. Kiki, don't be afraid. In the end, Su Jinfeng interrupted and said, Okay, you guys don't need to fight. He doesn't want the fruit, so you guys can keep it. Are you not a family if you don't share the shares? When you guys don't have money, the fruit paid for you guys to do business. Are you going to watch him starve to death when he doesn't have money in the future? Of course not. Yang Ping and Yang Chongguan said in unison. That's right. I think Poplar Fruit is doing the right thing. He thinks differently from you guys. He will enter the university to be a professor in the future, Su Jinfeng said proudly. She was very satisfied that Poplar Fruit went back to study and was valued by the dean. This might be the admiration of the older generation for scholars. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, Okay, Mom, don't brag. I am still thousands of miles away from being a professor. Sister, brother-in-law, it's settled. Don't try to persuade me anymore. Poplar Fruit waved his hand and continued, I'm going to the back room to make a call. If Chen Shu says that he's free tonight, we'll go there tonight. Poplar Fruit went back to the living room on the first floor and left the door ajar. He took out his phone and searched through his contact list for a long time before he found the number of County Magistrate Chen Longjiang. Speaking of which, Poplar Fruit was a little ashamed. In fact, Chen Longjiang was the closest to Poplar Fruit in the family. It was mainly because Poplar Fruit saved his daughter. However, after Poplar Fruit went back to Yangcheng, he rarely talked to him on the phone. Usually Yang Ping and the others would do these things. Little Yang? Poplar Fruit? Chen Longjiang picked up the phone and asked. Secretary Chen, it's me. Haha, congratulations on your promotion. Poplar Fruit smiled. You heard about it too? Chen Longjiang smiled happily and said, I didn't get promoted. It's just that the burden on my shoulders got heavier. That's the blessing of the people in our county. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, After Secretary Chen came over, our county changed a lot. It became more beautiful and rich. Okay, you don't have to flatter me. Chen Longjiang smiled and said, Poplar Fruit isn't someone who likes to flatter people. Why? Did you call me? Did you come back to your hometown? Haha, Secretary Chen is still the best. You guessed it right. I just came back yesterday. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, I thought that since I haven't been back for so long, I should pay you a visit. I wonder if you're free tonight? I'm free. Why don't you come over tonight? I also have something to talk to you about. Chen Longjiang hesitated and said, It's not convenient to talk about it over the phone. Come to my house and I'll tell you in detail. Poplar Fruit was a little confused, but he still smiled and said, Okay, see you tonight. After putting down the phone, Poplar Fruit muttered. What could it be that Chen Longjiang wanted to take the initiative to look for him? Leaders have no trivial matters. This sentence didn't mean that Yang Guo would treat every trivial matter as a big deal. For a county head who had to deal with a myriad of affairs every day, anything that could make him treat it as a big deal would definitely not be a trivial matter. I hope it's something good. Poplar Fruit muttered to himself. Poplar Fruit did not know what was going on with Chen Longjiang, but the phone call he received next was definitely not something good. Not long after putting down the phone, Poplar Fruit's phone rang again. Picking up the phone, Poplar Fruit saw an unfamiliar phone number on the screen. He did not record it, but he had seen it before. Moreover, the caller's origin showed the name of his hometown. Who is it? Poplar Fruit hesitated for a moment, but still pressed the answer button. Hello, Poplar Fruit said tentatively. This was the best dialogue for an unfamiliar caller. However, there was no reply from the receiver. The phone was connected. Poplar Fruit's sensitive hearing could even hear the short breathing on the other side. However, no one spoke. It was like the sound of an empty valley. Hello? Hello? Poplar Fruit shouted twice. He frowned and listened carefully, but he still did not hear anyone speak. Could it be a wrong number? Or did he accidentally touch it? If you don't speak, I'll hang up. Hello? Poplar Fruit said. He was about to take down the phone and press the button when suddenly, there was a voice from the receiver. It was so familiar that his arms suddenly froze and stiffened. His eyes stared straight, as if his brain had crashed. Chapter 286. Yang. Guo, it's me. Poplar Fruit froze. His body felt as if it had been frozen in ice for thousands of years. Even his mind went blank. That voice seemed to come from an empty valley, echoing and cleansing in his mind. The reverberation was like the sound of a clock in the middle of the night, far away but close at hand. So many years of being haunted by dreams, so many years of hesitation, so many years of longing for the moon. These scenes were all from movies. Of course, they didn't match Poplar Fruit's situation. Poplar Fruit only needed 3 hours of deep sleep every day. He hadn't had any dreams in the past year, and he hadn't been stagnant. Counting his achievements in the past year, he wouldn't have believed it was him in the past. As for the longing, maybe it was during the first few months. He had also been drunk. He had also looked at photos and lost himself in memories. Even in the middle of the night, he would occasionally think of her. That's right. This voice belonged to Lu Yunran, who had disappeared for almost a year. He had been intimate with her for 4 years, but after hearing news about her from his classmates, he had given up. At least, he thought he had given up. Was he just Poplar Fruit now? Yang Guo suddenly felt her heart clench. Where did the guagua, that was mushy but sweeter than honey, go? Poplar Fruit opened his mouth, but he realized he couldn't call Lu Yunran by her name. The 3 words that were at the tip of his tongue turned into the nickname he was most familiar with in the past. Xiaoran. His voice trembled like silk. Anyone could tell that his heart was in a mess. Yes, it's me. He didn't hear wrong. It was indeed Lu Yunran's voice, even though it was much deeper than the one he was familiar with. I didn't think it would be you calling. Poplar Fruit's heart pounded violently when he said this. It was only at this moment that he realized that the past he had tried so hard to forget was not really covered in dust. The person he thought he had forgotten was still hidden in the bottom of his heart. I was just giving it a try. I didn't expect that you still haven't changed your phone number after so long. Lu Yunran said softly with a hint of bitterness in her voice. He. Poplar Fruit giggled. It turned out that he was still waiting. Subconsciously, he had shut himself off from his feelings for a year. He was unwilling to think about it, and he didn't dare to open himself up to start a new relationship. So it was because there was still a little bit of struggle in his heart, and there was still a little bit of fantasy left. However, all fantasies would be shattered. I'm getting married, Lu Yunran suddenly said after a long silence. Translator. WQL editor. Alim. The short sentence was like 5 lightning bolts striking down, making Poplar Fruit dizzy and unable to stand steadily. He even had to hold onto the table in the parlor before slowly falling onto the chair. Poplar Fruit's mind was blank. It was as if he was suddenly cut off from the world. He couldn't hear or see anything. Poplar fruit. Poplar fruit. Don't scare me. When he slowly came back to his senses, Poplar fruit heard Lu Yunran calling out to him. Her voice was slightly nasal. Poplar fruit smiled bitterly. He knew that this was Lu Yunran's reaction to the pain in her heart. It was a sign that she was about to cry. I'm fine. I just need some time to digest this news. Poplar fruit opened his mouth and said. However, as soon as he said it, even he was shocked. In just a short while, his voice became so dry that it was as unpleasant as sandpaper rubbing against each other. Lu Yunran also fell into silence. Her breathing was heavy, and she was hesitating. Poplar fruit asked bitterly, when is the wedding? May 1st. Lu Yunran said softly. May 1st. Poplar fruit sighed in his heart. It was really fast. Even if he counted with his fingers, it hadn't even been a year since the two of them broke up. Poplar fruit looked at his palms. He gently squeezed and opened them. It hadn't even been a year, and she had already started a new relationship. No, it should be said that she was about to step into the hall of marriage. Wasn't this what she had been hoping for? Congratulations. Poplar fruit said softly. Isn't this what you've been hoping for? He's a civil servant. He's not young anymore. His family has been rushing him so. Lu Yunran said a lot, but Poplar fruit didn't actually listen to her. Because was this still important? Poplar fruit smiled bitterly again and shook his head. Perhaps this was for the best. Poplar fruit suddenly thought. The two of them were no longer on the same track. Lu Yunran returned to a quiet and peaceful small city. She didn't have to work so hard to earn money. She didn't have to travel between two cities. Then, she could live the happy life she had always wanted. Poplar fruit, on the other hand, had been commanding the winds and clouds in the translation circle. He was also at home in the publishing industry. He had met many big shots, and friends that he had never dared to think about before. Most importantly, he had a little fairy who changed his life greatly and made him happier and happier. Kiki. Was it possible to go back to the past? Even if it was possible, would Poplar fruit be willing to give up his cute daughter? No, Kiki was already a part of Poplar fruit's life that he couldn't give up. Since the two of them couldn't be together again, the only thing Poplar fruit could do now was to accept and sincerely wish her well. Yes, that was what Poplar fruit was thinking now. Where is your wedding? I'm just going back to my hometown in a few days. Poplar fruit suddenly interrupted Lu Yunran, and said with a smile. Lu Yunran hesitated and said, Second floor of Hengtai Hotel, 12 a.m. After she finished speaking, she was silent for a long time. Suddenly she asked, Fruit, will you come? Yes, definitely. Poplar fruit said firmly. After he finished speaking, he felt that his tone was a bit too decisive. Then he softened his tone and pretended to be magnanimous. Haha, don't worry. I'm going to give you my well wishes. As long as you're doing well. Then I'm relieved. Even he himself felt that these words were very fake. There was silence on the other side of the phone. Only the sound of rapid breathing could be heard. For some reason, Poplar fruit felt that Lu Yunran was crying silently on the other side of the phone. Maybe it was just an illusion. Poplar fruit could hear the sound of several deep breaths coming from the phone. It wasn't hard to guess that Lu Yunran opened her mouth a few times, stopped, and then closed it again. Was she hesitating? What was she hesitating about? Why did she want to say something but stop? Or was she afraid that he would go and cause trouble, so she wanted to tactfully reject him but was too embarrassed to say it? Poplar fruit also hesitated. He wondered if he should say that he wasn't going so that she wouldn't be in a difficult position. Fruit. Lu Yunran finally opened her mouth. Her voice was trembling very badly. Poplar fruit softly replied. Lu Yunran took a deep breath, as if she was using the last bit of strength in her body to say the following words. I want to see you. Her voice was full of struggle and desire. Tomorrow night, can you come out and chat with me? Chapter 287. Can you come out tomorrow night to chat with me? Lu Yunran's question made Poplar fruit fall silent again. He realized that his hand holding the phone was trembling nonstop, and a few blurry images flickered in his mind. Haha. Tomorrow night? I'm not free these few days. Poplar Fruit suddenly laughed loudly. Kiki, my daughter, is turning 1 on the 28th. I can't leave. Poplar Fruit's words made Lu Yunran fall silent again. The courage and hope she had just mustered suddenly deflated like a punctured balloon. Then forget it, she said weakly. All right then, I'll see you at the wedding. Poplar Fruit smiled and hung up. After hanging up, Poplar Fruit was in a daze for a long time before he sighed. What he said just now was half true and half false, but he was definitely not a blockhead who would say something that would spoil the mood at that time. Even if Poplar Fruit had a problem with his EQ, he could still understand what Lu Yunran was implying. However, he really did not want to go. He did not want to ruthlessly interfere with Lu Yunran's almost perfect and happy life, nor did he want to be entangled with Lu Yunran in an impossible future. The most important thing was that at that moment, he suddenly saw the flashing images in his mind clearly. The images were very warm, just like a home that he had always dreamed of. There was him, Kiki, and Fang Beibei in it. Yes, those images were the bits and pieces of the teacher's apartment that only had one room and one living room. He realized that in the past year that he had sealed off his feelings, he had actually experienced so much happiness. He felt an urge to take out his phone and call Fang Beibei. However, when he placed his hand on his phone, he paused. He was a little hesitant. He felt that the relationship between the two of them was not mature enough. There was still a little spark missing. Moreover, now was not the right time. He had been dilly-dallying in the house for a long time. Perhaps his sister and brother-in-law were already impatient. Kiki had not seen her father for so long, and she was probably going to make a fuss. Besides, didn't he have something to do today? I still have to visit Chunlongjiang tonight. Poplar Fruit put the phone back into his pocket and shook his head. He adjusted his depressed expression, pushed open the door, and walked out with a smile. At 4 p.m., Poplar Fruit drove out with Yang Ping and Yang Chongguan. The one in the driver's seat was not Poplar Fruit, but the veteran driver, Yang Chongguan. To be exact, Yang Chongguan had forcefully pushed aside Poplar Fruit and occupied the driver's seat. Poplar Fruit had no choice but to sit in the front passenger seat, while Yang Ping helped to hold Kiki in the back seat. Kiki could go with them because her father, Poplar Fruit, was worried about leaving her at home. Young Linjia did not have such good treatment. He was pitifully thrown to his grandparents, and could only send off the big car with tears. Brother-in-law, hurry up and buy a car. Poplar Fruit laughed. You always take my car. That depends on your sister's mood. Yang Chongguan laughed. The financial power is in her hands. I can only think about it in vain. Suddenly he turned his head and winked. Why don't you leave the car at home and let me have my fun? I'll drive it to you 2 months later. You wish. Poplar Fruit said vigilantly. I'm telling you, you can have any ideas about me, but you can't have any ideas about my car. This is Poplar Fruit's car. This is Papa's car. Kiki suddenly screamed in the back, imitating her father's tone. Hey, did you hear that? Go ask your wife for money. Poplar Fruit laughed and said. Kiki's support made him very proud. Okay. Yang Ping laughed in the back seat, reached out her hand and hit Poplar Fruit's head. She said, I know you two are pushing me. Did you just discuss it at home? Isn't it just a car? It's not a big deal. Yang Ping raised her head arrogantly and said, I'll approve it for you. You can choose any car within 400,000. Yang Chongguan lowered his body and sighed. He said, sigh for 100,000. What kind of car can I buy? Aya? You're picking with me? Yang Ping said unhappily. 400,000 is too little? Didn't you drool when you looked at cars that cost more than 100,000? My former boss Audi only cost 360,000, right? Those small cars that cost 100 or 200,000 are not as satisfying as the Land Rover. Yang Chongguan said dejectedly. He used to be a soldier, so he liked the Land Rover, which was a muscular car. He felt uncomfortable driving those small cars with low chassis and short bodies. Ha! Poplar Fruit laughed. Brother-in-law, you don't say. You can really buy a domineering and satisfying car with 400,000. What car? Yang Chongguan asked, puzzled. Jeep's Grand Cherokee. Poplar Fruit laughed. That car was also a tough guy's style. It was big enough and thick. Poplar Fruit had considered it before, but later he preferred the Land Rover. The Land Rover's thick lines were soft, and the interior design was more considerate. The front seat space was much bigger than the Grand Cherokee. That car is good, but doesn't it cost 5 or 600,000 to afford it? Yang Chongguan had been a driver for many years, so he was quite familiar with the car market. When he heard Poplar Fruit's inappropriate suggestion, he frowned and asked. Poplar Fruit smiled. He didn't answer directly but asked, "Brother-in-law, how much do you think my car cost?" "Your car?" Yang Chongguan rubbed the steering wheel and asked, "Is this the Land Rover Range Rover Sports Edition? Look at the shape." "Yes." Poplar Fruit nodded and said, "If it's a Range Rover Sports Edition, even if it's a low configuration." Yang Chongguan said. Poplar Fruit interrupted his soliloquy and laughed. "Mine is a 5.0. Yang Chongguan looked at Poplar Fruit in horror. He thought for a moment and said, "No wonder the engine is so loud. If it's a 5.0, then it should be more than 1.8 million. Not bad." Poplar Fruit praised. "Brother-in-law, you really know a lot about cars. But you're wrong." Poplar Fruit's tone suddenly changed, making Yang Chongguan frown. He said, "Isn't it? By the way, if you ask me this, then it should be a bargain. So it's more than 1.7 million? Ha! 1.2 million. Poplar Fruit gestured and said, "I have a friend who is very good in this industry, and he gave me the cost price." Hiss. Yang Chongguan couldn't help but gasp at the price difference of more than 600,000. "Your friend is very good. He even gave me the cost price. He's a big boss. So, brother-in-law, you can still buy a Grand Cherokee with 400,000. Poplar Fruit laughed. "Although it's impossible to get the cost price again, it's still cheaper by 100,000. We can buy a lower configuration. Everyone, please use your votes to buy the poor. Greater than over equal to." Chapter 288. In less than an hour, Poplar Fruit and his party entered the county and drove the Land Rover towards the county governor's family courtyard. At the entrance, Poplar Fruit did not need to waste his breath and showed his identification to the guard before he was allowed to enter. Chen Longjiang had already informed the guard, and since the boss had spoken, coupled with the fact that there weren't many Land Rovers in the county, the guard naturally wouldn't make things difficult for them. On the other hand, Yang Chongguan was even more capable than Poplar Fruit. He took out a pack of cigarettes and gave it to the guard as the two of them exchanged smiles. "You know each other?" Poplar Fruit asked when he got into the vehicle. "How could I know each other? Isn't this just to make things more convenient next time?" Yang Chongguan smiled as he continued. "I've seen many of these things in the guest house in the past." Yang Chongguan followed the directions given by the guard and stopped the car in front of Building 606. It was a small two-story building with a single door. Hidden by the bamboo forest, it looked a little quiet. However, this small building was not alone. There were several small buildings of different shapes and sizes along the road. At this moment, Chen Longjiang was still in a meeting. As the county governor, he was busy with work every day, so it's impossible for him to get off work at 5 p.m. The person who received the call came out to greet Yang Gua and the others. It was Chen Longjiang's wife, Feng Yuqing. She had met them before at Chen Longjiang's thank you banquet. Since then they had kept in touch, so she immediately recognized Yang Gua and the others. "Poplar Fruit, over here, over here." Feng Yuqing was from the north, so she spoke with a slight accent. Furthermore, her Mandarin was much better than those from Guangdong province. "You even bought a car? Little Ping, your family's business is doing pretty well." Feng Yuqing chuckled. "How can I afford this car? You know how small my business is." Yang Ping held onto Feng Yuqing's hand. The two of them were intimate as she continued. "These were all bought by Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit is doing pretty well in Yangqing City." Feng Yuqing smiled as she continued. "I heard from you that you're a translator? How can you make so much money?" Poplar Fruit carried Kiki with one hand and took out 2 plain bags from the trunk with the other. He smiled and said, "Auntie Feng, I can't earn so much just by being a translator. These are all coincidences. I happen to encounter some suitable opportunities to earn this money. Moreover, the company is giving me dividends now, so I still have some spare cash. Since you're already here, why did you bring anything? Really? Feng Yuqing led them home and complained along the way. No, I went to the US for a business trip some time ago and brought 2 boxes of authentic ginseng. Isn't Xiaoya going to take her college entrance examination soon? You can ask the nanny to cook more soup for her. It can eliminate fatigue and improve her memory, Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Hey, don't say that. Xiaoyu will be back soon. She always talks about brother Poplar Fruit, saying that you don't come back to see her often. Feng Yuqing laughed. He's a busy man. Yang Ping also chimed in. He throws all the family business to me and never calls to ask about it. That's your fault. Feng Yuqing chuckled and helped to blame Poplar Fruit. When they arrived at the living room on the first floor, Feng Yuqing arranged for Poplar Fruit and the rest to sit on the sofa. Then she asked the nanny to cut the fruit and bring it up. Can the baby eat fruit? Feng Yuqing asked with a smile. These apples and pears were just bought this morning. They're still fresh. We can't eat them directly. Poplar Fruit asked the nanny for a small spoon and scooped some apple puree for Kiki to eat. The apple puree was sweet and sour. Kiki liked it very much. 1 bite was not enough. She opened her mouth and looked at the spoon in her father's hand. The baby is so cute. Feng Yuqing's maternal instinct was triggered. She reached out and took Kiki. Kiki was reluctant at first, but later, under Poplar Fruit's comfort and Feng Yuqing's apple puree for her, she obediently settled down. I still think you're having a baby too early, Feng Yuqing said as she scooped the apple puree. When I was your age, I wanted to go out and see more of the world. I didn't want to lock myself up with a child so early. Nothing is absolute in the world. Poplar Fruit laughed. For others, it may be a problem, but for me, it's happiness. Besides, after Kiki was born, she brought me a lot of good luck. Otherwise, I would still be working in the foreign trade industry. What you said makes sense. It's a blessing in disguise. Perhaps this is also your blessing. Feng Yuqing was very open-minded. She changed her mind quickly. Just like Xiaoyu. She encountered that incident last year. We were scared to death. If you weren't there, Xiaoyu would be ruined. When she said that, she wiped the corner of her eyes with lingering fear. Then she continued. But who knew that this incident turned from a bad thing to a good thing? Xiaoyu used to be crazy and often skipped class to play with other students. After this incident, her personality suddenly changed. She became quiet and loved to study. Her mind also seemed to be enlightened. Last month, she got into the top 30 of the grade. That's amazing, Poplar Fruit praised. He remembered that Chen Longjiang used to say that his daughter's grades were at the bottom of the class. Yes, Xiaoyu is also destined for good fortune after surviving a great disaster. Feng Yuqing laughed. Mom, you're talking about me again. At this moment, the entrance door opened, and a young girl walked in. She was wearing a high school uniform, and the tight top made her look bulging. Coupled with her somewhat childish appearance, she really looked like a child's XX, hidden you all know. Haha. Feng Yuqing laughed loudly. At home, she still showed the magnanimity of a northern woman. She waved her hand and called. Xiaoyu, look who's here? Poplar Fruit cooperatively stood up, turned around with a smile and greeted Xiaoyu. Ah. Chen Peiyue's eyes widened. She raised her hand that wasn't holding her bag and covered her mouth. She exclaimed, Poplar Fruit Gidge. After Poplar Fruit saved her, he left a deep impression in her heart. And Poplar Fruit's tall and handsome appearance often sneaked into her dreams. At the age of 16 or 17, it was the age when a young girl was pregnant, separated. When she was ignorant about love, she was often attracted by the blushing scenes in romance novels. She would always fantasize that there was such an indomitable hero who would soar into the sky with her. In the future, time might dilute her thoughts, and a broader and more exciting world would take over Poplar Fruit's position in her heart. But at this time, when Chen Peiyue saw Poplar Fruit, it was as if she saw her idol. Her heart was beating non-stop. How could Feng Yuqing not see her daughter's abnormality? But she was different from ordinary mothers. She knew that this kind of thing should not be blocked. If she blocked it, It would only make things worse. She smiled and unobtrusively returned Kiki to Poplar Fruit. Then she stood up and took her daughter's bag. She lovingly said, "You must be tired after a day of class. Wash your hands and eat the fruit." Chapter 289. Poplar Fruit did not notice Chen Peiyue's little situation. All the possible and impossible signs were easily resolved by the far-sighted Feng Yuqing. At least, when she saw Poplar Fruit holding Kiki with a kind and amiable look, Chen Peiyue's eyes regained their clarity. She ate some fruits downstairs and accompanied her mother for a while. Then she went upstairs to take a shower. She was already a high school student. After dinner, she still had to go to self-study. After Chen Peiyue went upstairs, Yang Ping secretly asked Feng Yuqing, "Aunt Feng, I say, Uncle Chen's position is so high. Why didn't he find some connections to transfer Xiaoyu to a key middle school in the city? You also know that the treatment in our county is poor. The good teachers have all run away. Sigh, do you think we haven't considered this problem?" Feng Yuqing sighed. "At that time, if she wasn't like a crazy girl, I would have been willing to let her go to a key middle school in the province, let alone the city. Didn't you say that she is very obedient now?" Yang Ping asked, puzzled. "Yes, now that she finally got better and her grades have improved. I am even more worried about letting her go to other places to study. If her parents are not by her side, if something happens, there will be no one to take care of her." Feng Yuqing explained. "As parents, don't we want our children to be safe? It doesn't matter if her grades are bad or the school is bad. Even if she fails the monthly exam after the college entrance examination next year, with some connections, she won't have to worry about not being able to study in a university." "That's right." Poplar Fruit laughed. "At worst, we can find a preparatory course for a year, and send her directly to Australia or Yingjili to study." Sigh, Poplar Fruit's words are reasonable. Feng Yuqing said happily, "Oh right, Xiaoyang, you are studying English. How much do you know about foreign universities? Recently, a friend of mine mentioned this to me." Poplar Fruit laughed. "You don't say, I do know a little." They talked and laughed for nearly an hour. The nanny had already prepared the food. At this time, Chen Longjiang came back, covered in dust. "Little Yang is here?" Chen Longjiang took off his suit jacket and said with a smile, "Sorry, I just received 2 petitioners and came back a little late." "You're not late. You came back just in time for dinner," Feng Yuqing rebuked. She went up and very considerately took Chen Longjiang's coat and hung it on the hanger. "Come, let's eat," Chen Longjiang said with a smile after washing his hands. "I'll call Xiaoyu down." Feng Yuqing walked upstairs. "What has little Yang been up to recently?" Chen Longjiang asked Poplar Fruit and the others to sit down as he sat beside Poplar Fruit. The nanny was smart enough to bring a small stool for Kiki. Poplar Fruit put the stool and the chair together and carried Kiki in. "Chongguan, you don't have to report to me." Chen Longjiang laughed and said, "I recently learned a lot about your business. It's very good, but there are some things that I'll tell you later after dinner." "Me? I'm busy with translation. Recently, I went abroad with the publisher to bring in a book. I'll translate it." Poplar Fruit supported Kiki and said with a smile, "Also, I'm preparing for graduate school. My supervisor recently asked me to teach a professor as an assistant." "It seems that you're taking the academic route." Chen Longjiang nodded and said with appreciation, "That's not bad. Our country doesn't lack people who do business, but we lack people who do solid research." "What do you mean by research?" Chen Peiyue took her mother's hand and walked down the stairs. Before they reached the dining room, she heard Chen Longjiang's words and asked strangely, "I'm talking about little Yang." Chen Longjiang turned back and said with a smile, "He's not even a graduate student yet, but he's already a teaching assistant. Maybe in 3 to 5 years, we'll have to call him Professor Yang." "How can it be so fast?" "Professor Chen, don't make fun of me." Poplar Fruit was a little embarrassed by his words. "Our country's professors rely on theses and qualifications. How can it be so easy?" "It's already very amazing." Chen Peiyue looked at Poplar Fruit with stars in her eyes. Then, she was pulled by Feng Yuqing to sit down. Feng Yuqing wanted to kick Chen Longjiang. He really touched the pot that didn't boil. Did he think that poplar fruit's charm wasn't great enough? However, in front of outsiders, she couldn't make too big of a move. It was also because she saw that poplar fruit didn't have any thoughts in this area that she didn't have an ugly expression. Dinner wasn't serious. The Chun family didn't pay attention to food. Feng Yuqing and Yang Ping talked about clothes and cosmetics for a while, and pointed at poplar fruit who was feeding Kiki some meat porridge. They chatted and laughed, and the whole table was filled with laughter. Yang Ping once again made poplar fruit look at her in a new light. In the past, this big sister of his had always been barefaced. He didn't expect her to have such a deep understanding of these things. If he had known earlier, he would have bought her some high-end cosmetics in Los Angeles. He only bought a pair of shoes. What a miscalculation. After dinner, Chen Longjiang ran to the TV to watch the news broadcast. Chen Peiwei had to go to self-study. Poplar Fruit took out the key and asked his brother-in-law to drive her there. Feng Yuqing's pupils shrank slightly, but she didn't say anything when she saw that Poplar Fruit wasn't going. "Little Yang, this news is about your translation," Chen Longjiang suddenly shouted while drinking tea and watching TV. Poplar Fruit quickly hugged his daughter and sat down, as if he had been pardoned. They were talking about women's stuff. Poplar Fruit couldn't sit still for a long time. Today the country's vice president, XXX, warmly received the Chinese Translation Association's president, XXX, and vice president, XXX, and others at the Beijing Great Hall. He highly praised them. Listening to the male host's broadcast, Poplar Fruit felt a little bored. Suddenly he was energized because he saw a familiar figure. Professor Roland. He was actually granted an audience as well. Poplar Fruit smiled. He didn't even have a chance to see his name in the crowd, but the camera quickly turned away. XXX proposed that the translators of our country should strengthen the spirit of learning from XXX and be brave enough to take on the heavy responsibility of promoting the excellent Chinese culture. Yang Guo listened to the rest of the conventional words and remembered them, but she also forgot them. At this time, Chen Longjiang suddenly gave him a strange smile and said, "You think it's all nonsense, right?" Poplar Fruit nodded honestly. "Don't underestimate the news broadcast." Chen Longjiang turned his head back to the TV, but he continued to smile and said, "There are two important messages in this news. First, the country is starting to pay more attention to the translation industry. This may be a blessing for your translators. Second, don't just think about translating good books from other countries. Think about what good books our country has that are worth promoting and promoting culture. The country will definitely increase its support in this area in the future." Chen Longjiang turned his head and raised his eyebrows at Poplar Fruit. "Listen to my analysis, it's definitely correct. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to." Chapter 290. After watching the news broadcast, Chen Longjiang refilled the teacup with hot tea, then picked it up and said to Poplar Fruit, "Come with me to the study room, I have something to tell you." Poplar Fruit quickly handed Kiki to his sister and comforted her. "Kiki, listen to your aunt outside. Dad is inside and will come out soon." Kiki blinked her big eyes, hugged her beloved Barbie doll, and nodded vigorously. After entering the study room, Chen Longjiang asked Poplar Fruit to sit down. Chen Longjiang, who was very relaxed in front of his family, suddenly became serious. Yang was heart tightened when she saw this. She quickly sat up straight. "Did you provoke someone?" Chen Longjiang frowned and said, "A very powerful person." Poplar Fruit was stunned. "Provoke a very powerful person? How could it be? He is just an ordinary person. He rarely goes out. Except for accidentally provoking a mad dog like Liang Zhenglin, he has no enemies. Not to mention a very powerful enemy. Chen Shuji, what are you referring to? I didn't provoke a very powerful person." Poplar Fruit anxiously stood up and asked, "Don't worry." Chen Longjiang patted Poplar Fruit's shoulder and said, "Listen to me. The situation is like this. About a week ago." Chen Longjiang slowly said, "Someone from the top is investigating your information through the Secretary of the Political and Legal Affairs Committee. I have people in the Public Security Bureau. Your brother asked him for help before, so he told me." A week ago, didn't he just come back from abroad? Yanggua's brows were tightly knitted as she pondered seriously. At that time, I asked someone to help me ask who wanted to investigate you. Chen Longjiang shook his head and said, unfortunately, the other party also used layers of connections. When it came to the province, my connections were not enough to investigate. From this point of view, the other party is a senior official, Chen Longjiang bitterly said. At that time, I didn't know whether it was an enemy or a friend, so I didn't make a move. Is it an enemy? Poplar Fruit asked. From Chen Longjiang's expression, the answer was very clear. Yes, it's to deal with you. Chen Longjiang gently patted the desk, and then sat down on the edge. How do you want to deal with me? Poplar Fruit gently clenched his fist and asked. 2 days before you came back, the city ordered the Bureau of Industry and Commerce to investigate your family's business. You know what I mean by investigation, right? Chen Longjiang said. At least they will find an excuse to put a seal on your family's business and stop it for rectification. Thank you, Secretary Chen. Poplar Fruit said in a low voice. He was not stupid. Up until now, he had not heard his sister and brother-in-law mention this matter, which meant that Chen Longjiang had secretly helped them suppress it. What are you thanking me for? I can't just watch as the business that your family has spent so much effort on suddenly collapses. After all, you are Xiao Yu's savior. Chen Longjiang sighed and said. This time, I found an excuse to cancel the county's operation. What savior? Even if it's a favor, Secretary Chen, your help in the past 6 months has already been repaid. Poplar Fruit said seriously. This time, I really want to thank you. Let's not talk about this first. It's not the time to be happy. Chen Longjiang waved his hand and said. The other party will definitely not give up. This time, it's only the county's operation. Next time, if it's the city's people, I can't intervene. So today, I want to talk to you about this matter and discuss a countermeasure. What countermeasure do I have? Poplar Fruit said with a wry smile. I don't even know who I have provoked. The enemy is in the dark and I am in the light. How can I solve this? Secretary Chen, if I quickly transfer all my shares to my sister, do you think they will stop? Poplar Fruit looked at Chen Longjiang with some hope and asked, although he also felt that his question was a bit naive. Impossible. They just don't want to deal with you alone. Chen Longjiang shook his head and said, think about it again. Did you accidentally offend someone? If you know who it is, it's not too late to take the initiative to apologize. Poplar Fruit pondered for a while, but still shook his head and said, I can't remember. I have never offended anyone powerful. Then we can only deal with it as it comes. Chen Longjiang sighed and said, even if something goes wrong this time, tell Chongguan not to care too much about it. It's just a business deal. As long as there's life, there's hope. After this disaster, I'll find a better business deal for them. Chen Longjiang's comfort did not have much of an effect. Poplar Fruit still felt very aggrieved in his heart. He did not know what he had done wrong, and now his sister's business was facing a disaster. Although he still had a lot of capital and did not have to worry about not having a way, this matter would definitely cause a great blow to his sister and brother-in-law, because this was their first business. How much sweat had he shed in half a year? He had just seen hope, but suddenly he said that it was going to be destroyed. Thinking about his brother-in-law's longing for the Grand Cherokee that he was about to own, Poplar Fruit was particularly upset. No, there should be another way. Poplar Fruit suddenly stood up and said, let me make a call first. Poplar Fruit wanted to find his brother, Wenjua. It was definitely useless to find Song Jiwen. Song Chunfeng was only at the bureau level. No matter how long his hands were, it was impossible for him to reach here. The only hope was Wenjua. His father was on the standing committee. Although he was on the military side, there might be a way. Wenjua's phone was placed next to his ear for a long time, but he still could not get through. It seemed that he was training in the military camp or out on a mission again. Poplar Fruit did not give up. He called his sister-in-law again. Ji Xiaoyan's phone was easily connected. Poplar Fruit. Ji Xiaoyan smiled after picking up the phone. Didn't you say that you were going home? Why are you calling? Poplar Fruit was not in the mood to chat with her for too long. He simply said a few words, and then moved on to the main topic. After listening to Poplar Fruit's words, Ji Xiaoyan was worried. Why did something happen at this juncture? Ji Xiaoyan sighed and said, "The army is having a military exercise this week. Your brother's army also followed, and then Dad also went to the scene to command. There hasn't been a call for 3 or 4 days. I think the earliest we can get in touch with them is the beginning of next month." But Poplar Fruit, don't panic. Ji Xiaoyan said calmly, "Nothing much will happen in the next few days. Just let them seal it for 2 days. When your brother comes back, he will definitely find Dad to solve it for you. Let's just endure for 2 days, okay? Sister-in-law, thank you. If my brother has any news, ask him to call me." With Ji Xiaoyan's consolation, Poplar Fruit was slightly relieved. Chapter 291. After putting down the phone, Poplar Fruit briefly explained He Wenjua's background to Qin Longjiang. Usually he wouldn't mention it to anyone. Even his best friend, Song Jiwen, only knew that Poplar Fruit had a friend in the army. He didn't know that He Wenjua's father had such a high position. It didn't matter if he told Qin Longjiang at this time because Qin Longjiang had met He Wenjua at the same time as he and He Wenjua. Moreover, Qin Longjiang had put in so much effort on this matter, so he should understand the situation. Aha, I didn't expect little he to have such a big background. Qin Longjiang didn't lose his composure. His family's background was quite strong. Although he still had to look up to He Wenjua's father, it wasn't to the extent that he was weak to the bone. Then it's easy to handle. Qin Longjiang organized his thoughts and analyzed it for Poplar Fruit. If Commander He helps you when the time comes, the other party should give you face. What we need to do now is drag it out for a few days. What should we do? Poplar Fruit asked. Should I call Yang Ping in too? She's in charge of all the business matters now. After Yang Ping carried Kiki in, Poplar Fruit took some time to explain the current situation to Yang Ping. In order to not let this dark matter disturb Kiki, she was too smart. Poplar Fruit was worried that she might be able to understand now. Poplar Fruit even hugged Kiki and covered her ears with his hands. Yang Ping was shocked at first, but then she became worried. She wasn't worried about whether the business would be destroyed. She only said worriedly, "Fruit, don't worry about the business. If the business is gone, as long as the people are fine, we can still continue. Now it's your problem. That person is coming for you. Will they frame you?" "They won't, right?" Poplar Fruit said uncertainly. "I don't think so." Qin Longjiang interrupted. If they wanted to frame Poplar Fruit, they would have done it in Yangcheng a long time ago. Targeting your family's business, the other party's intention to retaliate is even more obvious. Even if they want to frame you, Qin Longjiang said confidently, you don't have to worry. On my land, they can't possibly frame people so casually. If you want to arrest someone, you need at least a reason. We have people in the Public Security Bureau and acquaintances in the city. Don't worry. Yang Ping nodded and continued to ask, Secretary Qin, what do you think we should do? For the next few days, the factories and shops should keep a low profile. If they don't make a move in the next few days, it will be fine. But if they do, don't panic. Qin Longjiang said. It's just a small loss and a small problem. Let them handle it. Even if you're sealed, don't get into a conflict with the law enforcers. Poplar Fruit and Yang Ping listened attentively. They nodded as they listened. Only Kiki shook her head as she felt uncomfortable with her father's hand covering her ears. Of course, before that, you have to go back and check if there are any possible security loopholes or hygiene problems. Try not to let them catch you. Qin Longjiang added. Let them do whatever they want. After a few days, Xiao Yang's friend will come back. He will help to find someone to solve this matter. In case, I'm just saying in case, Qin Longjiang chuckled. If the standing committee doesn't have enough face, then let's not care about this business. We can earn it back in the future. Where there's life, there's life. Don't you think so? If Big Brother he can't do it, Secretary Qin, you don't have to get involved, Poplar Fruit said seriously. You have to protect yourself first. Don't do anything because of me. Don't worry. Qin Longjiang smiled and patted Poplar Fruit's shoulder gently. He said, "My family has some connections. They don't have any deep hatred, so they can't touch me easily." "What are you guys whispering about inside?" Chongguan sent Xiaoyu back. At this time, Feng Yuqing knocked on the door, then pushed the door open and said, "You're busy with work during the day, and now you can't even rest at night." "Haha, it's okay. We've finished talking. Let's go out." Chen Longjiang patted Poplar Fruit's shoulder and laughed. Poplar Fruit was much taller than him, so he couldn't do more difficult actions. Sister Hua made some sugar water. "Everyone, come and have some." Feng Yuqing led the way and said with a smile. On the way back, Poplar Fruit told Yang Chongguan about the incident again, and then said solemnly, "Sister, brother-in-law, I'm sorry. I've dragged you into such a dangerous situation." "How can you take all the blame?" Yang Ping retorted. "You don't even know who did it. Maybe it's a lunatic who doesn't like everyone, and you just happened to run into him." "Poplar Fruit, don't talk about your business and my business." Yang Chongguan, who had been listening quietly, said, "We're a family. Whatever happens, we should face it together. You used your connections to help us set up this business. Even if it's all ruined, don't feel bad. Yeah, we've already earned back the money we've earned in the past few months." Yang Ping laughed. "Don't talk about money. It's not about money." At this time, Yang Chongguan said very unyieldingly, "Even if our family goes bankrupt, we won't let that bully have his way. He wants us to admit defeat and lose our business, but we can't admit defeat to him." "Okay, don't be so stubborn." Yang Ping didn't know whether to laugh or cry, and said, "I know you're hot-blooded. Secretary Chen said that we should keep a low profile during this period of time. After this period of time, we still have hope." Yes, my wife is right." Yang Chongguan nodded and said, "What we're doing is called when the enemy retreats, we advance. When the enemy advances, we retreat." "You're using guerrilla warfare? Why don't you bring up your great-grandfather?" Yang Ping patted him and laughed. "Drive carefully. Be careful at night." Poplar Fruit sat in the passenger seat and smiled, watching the couple bicker. After a long time he said softly, "Seriously, thank you." "I'm serious too." Yang Chongguan laughed and said, "Can we not be so polite?" Okay, stop talking." Yang Ping hissed in the back. "Kiki's eyes are sleepy. She wants to sleep." The car suddenly fell into silence, just like the quiet night outside. The county road without street lights was as dark as ink. The Land Rover, like a wild beast, was running on the road with two huge headlights. There was no companion, only the dull roar of the engine. Although the night in the suburbs was scary, Poplar Fruit was not afraid, because the reflection in the car window was his brother-in-law's figure, which was illuminated by the dashboard. He could also hear the rustling sound of his sister coaxing Kiki to sleep. The car was driving towards the bright and warm home. Chapter 292. Poplar Fruit gave the car keys to Yang Chongguan, so that it would be convenient for them to go back tomorrow. The day after tomorrow was Kiki's birthday. Poplar Fruit didn't want to cause any more trouble. Early the next morning, Yang Chongguan hurriedly drove back to the county with Yang Ping. Third granduncle helped to look after the factory. Moreover, it was in the countryside far away from the emperor. As long as they didn't cause any trouble, there wouldn't be any problems. They were mainly worried about the main store in the county. It was too big of a target. Poplar Fruit asked them to go back and check it. If they were still worried, they might as well close the store for a few days. In the past, Yang Tai and Su Jinfeng didn't care much about Poplar Fruit's birthday, or even Yang Linjia's birthday now. In the past, people in the countryside were busy with farm work. It was good enough to take care of 3 meals. How would they have the leisure to celebrate a birthday? However, when it came to Poplar Fruit's generation, they came into contact with the popular culture in the provincial capital. They began to feel that birthdays were worth commemorating. Moreover, it was Kiki's first birthday. Poplar Fruit made up his mind to celebrate Kiki's birthday with a grand celebration. The sun was still leisurely resting on the treetops in the east. Poplar Fruit drove his mother to the market in the village to buy some birthday items. Kiki was wearing a small flower cap. She was being carried by her grandmother behind her father's back. The whistling morning wind made her small face tremble and her mouth twitch. Chi-Chi's originally strong drowsiness disappeared in an instant. Actually, Chi-Chi quite liked this feeling. One could tell just by looking at her narrowed eyes. The Land Rover was very cool, and it ran much faster than a motorcycle. However, it lacked the feeling of being as fast as lightning. Everyone who liked to go for a ride knew that just admiring the scenery passing by quickly could not compare to the feeling of speed when the wind blew on one's face. However, the market in the village wasn't far. The motorcycle only took about 10 minutes to reach it. Poplar Fruit parked his car in front of an acquaintance's shop in the village and asked him to take care of it. Then he parted ways with his mother. Su Jinfeng rushed to the morning market to buy groceries, while Poplar Fruit carried Kiki to buy other things. Although the quality of the items in the various department stores in the countryside was somewhat poor, they had a wide variety of products. Thousands of products were hung on the shelves, and there were also a few rows of cardboard boxes on the ground. If a person were to walk in the store, it would be a problem to turn around and let them pass. Fortunately, Poplar Fruit was not here to buy things that could be used for a long time. He mainly wanted to buy some small toys such as a pocket abacus toy, a small ruler, a small crayon, a small seal, and so on. All of them were for Zhou. The custom of Zhou in Guangdong province was not strong. Poplar Fruit also followed the custom and bought according to the book. Although Zhou was actually a superstition and had little to do with a child's future, Poplar Fruit felt that this custom could be considered as a memento for Kiki's birthday. In the future, when Kiki grew up, Poplar Fruit would tell her these interesting things when she was young. That would be an indescribable joy. After buying these, Poplar Fruit went to look for a cake shop in the market. There were cake shops, but don't underestimate the spending power of rural people. Poplar Fruit saw two groups of people coming to place orders in just 10 minutes in a cake shop. However, Poplar Fruit still gave up because he carefully looked at the cake in the shop. The workmanship was really bad. He guessed that the owner worked outside and came back after learning half of it. The cream was spread in layers and was too uneven. The most important thing was that the quality of the cake in the shop seemed to be very unreliable. Poplar Fruit thought about it and decided to look at the situation. He would ask his brother-in-law to bring a cake back from the county tomorrow, or he would buy one himself. At least he would not have a stomachache. Speaking of food, Poplar Fruit felt that he was hungry. He went out in the morning without breakfast. When he smelled some cooked food in the market, Poplar Fruit's stomach growled. "Kiki, let's go eat, okay?" Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. Kiki, who was looking around for fresh food, immediately turned her head to look at them when she heard that. She licked her mouth with her small tongue, clapped her small hands and said, Okay. 2 pulled sausages, 1 with meat, 1 with eggs and 1 without. Poplar Fruit came to a rice noodle roll stand and sat down, speaking to the owner in his hometown dialect. Okay. Wait a moment. The owner was a thick-waisted woman. She rolled up her sleeves and pulled the steaming steamer. Her hands were busy, but her mouth did not stop. She said with a smile, "You brought your daughter to the market? Your child is very cute." "Yes, thank you," Poplar Fruit said with a smile. "Papa, it smells so good," Kiki said while holding her father's arm. She did not understand what her father said, but it was normal. Her father often changed his language at home, and she was used to it. The steam from the rice noodle roll stand was mixed with the tempting smell of minced meat. Kiki could not help swallowing her saliva. "Didn't the child grow up here?" The woman asked in surprise when she heard Kiki's childish voice, but it was quite standard Mandarin. "Yes, this time I brought her back to my hometown to play," Poplar Fruit said with a smile. The first rice noodle roll was soon served. It was the one without eggs. The white rice noodle roll, the bulging minced meat, and the fresh green lettuce were neatly cut. Then, with the sauce that had been prepared beforehand, the rich smell of the steaming rice noodle roll was very appetizing. The rice noodle roll in Guangdong province was very famous. In Poplar Fruit's hometown, although the rice noodle roll was not the most authentic, it still occupied a very important position in Poplar Fruit's memory, because of the genuine weight and the minced meat that filled the whole rice noodle roll. "I haven't eaten it for a long time, but I miss it when I smell it." Poplar Fruit gave the woman a thumbs up and said with a smile, "Haha, do you want a prawn sausage?" The woman laughed and said, "It's our local prawns. I guarantee that you will eat one and one more." "Okay, then I'll add one more." Poplar Fruit had not started eating yet, but said with pride. He did not plan to eat it himself. Poplar Fruit picked up a small piece of rice noodle roll mixed with minced meat, dipped it in the sauce, and blew on it with his mouth. Kiki was already moaning at the side. Poplar Fruit said with a smile, "What's the hurry? If it's cold, I'll give it to you now." Poplar Fruit put the rice noodle roll into Kiki's mouth, which was already wide open. Kiki immediately sucked on the chopsticks and closed her mouth. Poplar Fruit took out the chopsticks and Kiki began to eat. "Eat slowly, chew before swallowing," Poplar Fruit said with a smile. "Is it good?" Kiki did not answer, and nodded her head with her small mouth moving. Poplar Fruit picked up another piece of rice noodle roll with egg, and began to eat. Kiki anxiously finished the rice noodle roll in her mouth, and impatiently pulled on her father's clothes and shouted, "More, more." Looking at her anxious appearance, it was as if she was afraid that if she was slow, her father would eat her portion as well. Chapter 293. After eating the rice noodle roll, Poplar Fruit carried the satisfied Kiki back to the motorbike. He sat on it and waited for Su Jinfeng to come back. Su Jinfeng was famous for being slow when buying groceries. Not only did she like to bargain, but she would also find an excuse not to buy after bargaining. She would only make a final decision after shopping around. Therefore, Poplar Fruit still had time to answer a phone call. And this call, Poplar Fruit heard bad news. It wasn't from Yang Ping, but from Song Jiwen. Just after exchanging a few words with Song Jiwen, Poplar Fruit's face sank. What did you just say?" Poplar Fruit's hand that was holding the phone almost crushed it. "I said, weren't we going to deal with that bastard Liang Zhenglin? In the end he slipped away." Song Jiwen sighed and repeated, "It wasn't exactly a slip away. It was just that after our matter was left unsettled, he swaggered back to the company." Song Jiwen said while gritting his teeth. Before Poplar Fruit returned to his hometown, he asked Song Jiwen to help him teach Liang Zhenglin a lesson. And this lesson was that the relevant departments of industry and commerce, tax, public security, fire, and so on took turns to take action, forcing him to shut down the startup company that he was so proud of. Even the day before yesterday, the progress was very smooth. Song Jiwen's call to Poplar Fruit was all good news. He even happily told Poplar Fruit that his friend found evidence that Liang Zhenglin used unqualified ingredients to make cosmetics during a surprise inspection. With this evidence, even if Liang Zhenglin didn't die, he would lose a layer of skin. Poplar Fruit was also relieved. Then last night, he was discussing the family business with Yang Chongguan and the others. He didn't even have the time to ask about Song Jiwen's progress. As a result, Song Jiwen angrily called him today and told him that things were messed up. How could this be? Poplar Fruit frowned and asked, puzzled. Didn't we already get the evidence to convict him? Song Jiwen sighed and said, he has someone backing him. My buddies couldn't do anything. They all received a notice not to investigate further. Someone backing him? Poplar Fruit's eyes widened. Then he thought carefully and asked, how is that possible? How could he be so miserable if he had someone backing him? In the beginning, Liang Zhenglin was indeed very miserable. His company was investigated and shut down. The account books were directly brought to the bureau for questioning. He was caught by the police when he was dealing with the evidence in a panic. He was in the police station for 2 to 3 days. If he had someone backing him, why didn't he use it when he was crying for his parents? Poplar Fruit was really puzzled by Liang Zhenglin's strange and shocking turnaround. Not only did he get out of the detention room, but he also tore off the company seal and reopened for business. I don't know. When I investigated him, I didn't find out that he had any backing. Anyway, there was suddenly a very powerful person. I know who he is. He went to talk to the director of my buddies, and then my buddies were all scolded. Song Jiwen said unwillingly, my dad too. When he came back last night, he told me and you to keep a low profile. A very powerful person? Poplar Fruit felt that something was wrong. He hurriedly asked, "Does Godfather know who it is?" I asked, but he said he didn't know. Song Jiwen sighed and said, "Anyway, with my dad's status, he can't see the person in person." Poplar Fruit was silent. His body's breath was a little chaotic. Kiki felt it. She looked up at her father uneasily and held her father's left hand tightly in her arms. "Do you know something?" Song Jiwen felt that Poplar Fruit's reaction was a little strange and asked. "I don't know. It was like this yesterday." Poplar Fruit told Song Jiwen the news that Chen Longjiang had told him yesterday. Then he said, "I really don't remember offending that big shot." "It's okay. What are you afraid of?" Song Jiwen showed his keen political sense at this time and comforted him. "Didn't you just say that your brother's father is He Jioming? He is a big shot. As long as you ask him to come forward, what problem can't be solved? Don't worry. Wait patiently for 2 more days. The truth will definitely come out." "Well, that's the only way." Poplar Fruit sighed and said, "You should be careful too. Don't get yourself into trouble because of me." "You don't have to worry about me," Song Jiwen said indifferently. "My position is low. No matter how much trouble they cause, they won't be able to trouble me." After putting down the phone, Poplar Fruit's mood didn't improve. His face was still a little gloomy. The feeling of being inexplicably dealt with was too sullen. Moreover, he didn't know who the enemy was. Even if he had strength, there was nowhere to use it. He could only helplessly wait for bad news to come. Poplar Fruit clenched his fist hard. However, he soon couldn't hold it any longer because Chi-Chi had grabbed his clenched fist and pulled it apart forcefully. Kiki clenched her teeth hard and made some noise from the corner of her mouth. She felt her father's irritation and his fist was full of anger. She tried to release this anger from her father's hand, so that her father wouldn't continue to be unhappy. "What are you doing?" Looking at his daughter's action, Poplar Fruit's depression suddenly dissipated by half. He was stunned for a moment. He smiled and pulled out his right fist. He stretched it out and turned it into a big palm. He gently stroked Kiki's silky hair. "Woo-woo." Kiki turned around to face her father. Then, with a cry, she plunged into her father's stomach. Her pair of small arms grew very big. However, she still couldn't hug her father's waist. She was still too small. "Haha, okay. Why are you acting like a spoiled child?" Poplar Fruit laughed and hugged Kiki. He pressed his forehead against Kiki's little head and kissed her little mouth intimately. Kiki giggled. Then she realized that she was suddenly attacked. She suddenly covered her eyes with her hands and blushed shyly. Looking at his cute daughter, Poplar Fruit's unhappiness finally disappeared. Perhaps it was only temporary, but it was enough. Hey, what are you doing on the street?" Su Jinfeng's loud voice suddenly rang in Poplar Fruit's ears. Only then did Poplar Fruit realize that his mother was standing beside him with big and small bags. "That's all you bought?" Su Jinfeng put the meat and vegetables in order into the trunk of the motorcycle. In the end, she couldn't fit them all in, so she carried some in her hand. "Didn't you say that you wanted to buy a cake?" "I didn't find any good ones. I'll ask my brother-in-law to buy some later." Poplar Fruit smiled and turned the motorcycle around with one hand. Su Jinfeng strode onto the motorcycle and carried Kiki over. She held her with one hand and carried a lively duck with the other. Kiki's eyes lit up. She stuck her head out, and her attention was attracted by the duck. Chapter 294. Back home, Poplar Fruit rumbled his motorcycle into the yard, only to find that there was a guest in the house. These 2 days, the guests in the house had not stopped coming. People came and went in the village. Poplar Fruit often gave the children more expensive chocolate candy, so barefooted children often came to the house. However, Poplar Fruit did not expect this unexpected guest. "Herong, why are you here? I heard that you went to work in Guan City." Poplar Fruit stopped the motorcycle and turned the key while asking. Young Herong and Poplar Fruit were only 2 months apart in age. Poplar Fruit was even older than him. Although they both had the surname Yang, the two people were not family. Or it could be said that as early as 100 years ago, the two Yangs were divided into 2 clans, and their ancestral temples were not in the same place. Although the two people were similar in age, They had never played together since childhood. In elementary school, it was Poplar Fruit who beat Young Herong. In junior high school, it was Young Herong who beat Poplar Fruit. The two people had been fighting since childhood. As for high school, the two people had already walked on two different paths. Their opportunities and development were no longer on the same line. Poplar Fruit's grades in junior high school were very good. In high school, he directly went to the city to study. After the college entrance examination, he was the first person in their village to be admitted to a major university. After college, there was no need to talk about him. The reason why Young Herong was able to bully Young Guo in junior high school was because he didn't learn to be good since junior high school. Every day, he would mix around with a bunch of hooligans in the village. Fighting was a common occurrence, and he would often steal the scrap metal from the failed state-owned factories to sell for money. Every day, he skipped classes and did not go to school. After junior high school, Young Herong simply did not go to school. He went even further and mingled with the underworld. Smoking, drinking, eating, drinking, whoring, gambling, which was not good to learn. Every year when Poplar Fruit came back, he could hear people in the village sighing about Young Herong's misdeeds. He ate and drank at home, and was lazy to do work. He was unwilling to go with his parents to farm. Because of fighting and slashing people, he had been sent to the police station 2 or 3 times. His family had to pay a lot of money to get him out. The only change was at the beginning of this year, when he finally couldn't stand the nagging of his old mother at home. So he kicked open the door and ran to Guan City to work. There were as many factories in Guan City as there were hairs on an ox, so there was no shortage of opportunities for such young people to work, so he quickly found an assembly line job. Although there was no money to send home, at least she had changed her appearance. Her family was very gratified. Although the relationship between Poplar Fruit and Young Herong's family wasn't very good, Poplar Fruit was still able to obtain some information from the words of the visiting villagers. Poplar Fruit was somewhat puzzled by the fact that a person who usually didn't greet him, who should be working in Guan City, actually appeared in his home with a bag of fruit. However, looking at his father, Young Tai, who was silently smoking his hookah, Poplar Fruit guessed that they certainly didn't have any topics to talk about. Seeing Poplar Fruit, Young Herong also stood up. Although he didn't study well, he was tall and sturdy. Although he certainly couldn't be compared to Poplar Fruit, his height of 1.78 meters was also outstanding in the village. Young Herong usually didn't get along with Poplar Fruit, but at this time he said with a smile, "I just came back to see." He wasn't very good at pretending. Poplar Fruit felt that this smile was fake. It was basically a fake smile. Su Jinfeng held Kiki in one hand, and the duck in the other hand. Poplar Fruit parked the motorcycle, and then got down to help his mother take the vegetables and other things from the trunk. He politely greeted Young Herong. "Herong, when did you come back? Have you eaten lunch?" I ate. Young Herong stood in the same place and laughed. "By the way, Poplar Fruit," Young Herong rubbed his hands and asked, "I heard my mother say that your family opened a factory." "Yes." Poplar Fruit put down the things and turned around. "I heard that your factory pays 2,000 yuan a month." Young Herong laughed. "I don't know if you're still hiring." Poplar Fruit frowned and asked, "We're still hiring. Why? Do you want to join?" "Yes." Young Herong quickly replied. "You said that we brothers grew up together." Poplar Fruit still frowned and asked, "Aren't you doing well in Guan City? Besides, as far as I know, the wages paid to workers in Guan City aren't low. 3,000 yuan a month is more than enough. Why do you want to come back?" "Hey." Young Herong clapped his hands and said, "Poplar Fruit, you don't know. The work in Guan City isn't for people to do. It's so boring, and I have to work 6 days a week. The money I earn isn't enough for me to go to the bar with my friend." Poplar Fruit's frown deepened. He silently looked at Young Herong and didn't speak. "I can also show filial piety to my parents when I come back." Young Herong talked about the hardships in Guan City, and the benefits of coming back. Then he said with a flattering smile, "And with our relationship, plus my experience in Guan City, if I join your family's factory, I'll have to start as a supervisor. The salary will definitely be high, haha." Young Herong laughed dryly. Poplar Fruit was also angered by him. He sneered and asked, What's our relationship? As soon as this sentence came out, young Hairong's smile froze. Poplar Fruit didn't give him any face and said, "Let's not talk about the relationship. You tell me, with such a person, do you think I would dare to let you enter my factory?" Lazy, afraid of hardships and tiring. Yonghua counted with her fingers and said, "You've only been working in Guan City for a short time, yet you're already complaining about this and that. When you're tired, you come back to my family's factory. Is my family's factory more leisurely than the one in Guan City? Oh, I'm sorry, but my family's factory really can't afford to raise idle people. Besides, you want to be a supervisor? That's simply a joke." Poplar Fruit laughed and said, "Do you have the ability and quality to be a supervisor? Do you have the ability to coordinate, handle things calmly, and dare to take responsibility? Don't mention your experience to me. In my opinion, the experience of working in an assembly line for a few months is not worth mentioning." Young Hairong's face turned red. Looking at Poplar Fruit, he couldn't lift his face and said, "But we're from the same village." "That also depends on the situation." Poplar Fruit felt that he had just said a bit too much. He shook his head and said, "If you're willing to work hard, then we'll give you face, but you still can't meet our requirements. I suggest you go back to Guan City and gain experience for a few more years. When your temperament is stable, then come back to me. I don't need you to be long-winded about my affairs." With a low roar, young Hairong felt that he no longer had the face to stay in Poplar Fruit's house. He reached out and picked up the fruit he brought, and walked out without lowering his head. The moment he brushed past Su Jinfeng, who was carrying Chi-Chi, young Hairong abruptly stopped in his tracks. Chapter 295. Haha. Young Hairong turned around and tilted his head. His eyes were full of mockery as he said softly, "Poplar Fruit, you said that I'm useless and lazy. How good are you? We're all poor people born in the countryside. Don't think that you're so great just because you've been studying for 2 years." Young Hairong's voice suddenly became louder. "You're just a fucking gigolo who sells his ass." Poplar Fruit's face was a little ugly, but before he could say anything, young Hairong suddenly reached out and pinched Kiki's little face. He shook Kiki and shouted loudly, "Fuck, you think you're so great just because you're rich? Didn't you just cheat a rich woman?" He pinched Kiki's face for only a moment. Poplar Fruit and Su Jinfeng didn't react for a moment. Instead, Kiki opened her mouth and cried out in pain. Hearing his daughter's cry, Poplar Fruit's eyes instantly turned red. Poplar Fruit saw Su Jinfeng slap young Hairong's hand away and protect Kiki behind her. Then she screamed and scolded, "Lai Pairong, what are you doing?" Poplar Fruit had just rushed up and pushed young Hairong. He didn't have time to deal with young Hairong. He quickly took his mother's hand and checked on Kiki, who was crying uncontrollably. 2 long bruises appeared on Kiki's originally white and smooth left face, and they were swelling at a speed visible to the naked eye. Fuck. Young Hairong was pushed by Poplar Fruit and almost fell. He felt very embarrassed and cursed. He threw the bag of oranges on the ground. Several oranges rolled out on the ground. Young Hairong kicked away the oranges in front of him. He rolled up his sleeves and wanted to say something to Poplar Fruit. He gently caressed Chi-Chi's face, but Chi-Chi's crying became more and more intense, and the swelling on her face became more and more obvious. The anger in Yonghua's heart became more and more intense. He suddenly turned his head and his blood-red eyes stared at young Hairong. A tyrannical aura exploded in front of young Hairong like a fierce tiger. Seeing Poplar Fruit's eyes, young Hairong's legs almost went soft and his knees almost fell. He pointed at Poplar Fruit and stammered, "Pretty boy, what the fuck are you looking at?" A trace of anger flashed across Poplar Fruit's face. He stuffed Kiki into his mother's arms and walked towards young Hairong step by step. With every step he took, it was as if the earth was shaking and the mountains were shaking. His aura was getting more and more intense. Young Hairong had been fighting since he was young. He had even used a knife to cut people. He thought that he was not afraid of anything. When he saw Poplar Fruit walking towards him, his legs actually trembled. However, this action was too embarrassing in his eyes. Who was Poplar Fruit? He was just a bookworm. Ever since he joined the society, He had never taken poplar fruit seriously. Suppressing the inexplicable fear in his heart, Yang Hairong cursed and slapped Poplar Fruit's head. However, his right hand fell directly into Poplar Fruit's hand. Poplar Fruit's hand was like an iron clamp. He pulled Yang Hairong's right hand up, and then kicked Yang Hairong in the stomach. Poplar Fruit did not use any martial arts or fighting skills at all. He just relied on his reaction and strength to move and kick. Even so, Yang Hairong was not Poplar Fruit's opponent at all. He was kicked in the stomach by Poplar Fruit. At the same time, his right hand that was being controlled suddenly loosened. Yang Hairong was kicked to the ground and rolled twice on the ground like an egg. "If you have something to say, come at me," Poplar Fruit roared. It was as if thunder had suddenly exploded out of nowhere. "Why did you touch my daughter? If anything happens to my daughter, I will kill you. You motherfucker." Yang Hairong was also stubborn. After rolling twice on the ground, he stood up with his head and face covered in dust. He picked up a brick from the ground and howled as he rushed at Poplar Fruit. He held the brick in his right hand and swung it high, smashing it at Poplar Fruit's head. In Poplar Fruit's view, Yang Hairong's wild boxing was full of loopholes. However, he was ruthless. He met the brick with a fist. In an instant, the brick was smashed into pieces by Poplar Fruit's fist. Yang Hairong was dumbfounded. Poplar Fruit kicked out again, kicking Yang Hairong and making him roll on the ground again. This time, Poplar Fruit did not give Yang Hairong a chance to breathe. Thinking of Kiki's face being strangely pinched by Yang Hairong, Poplar Fruit strode to Yang Hairong, who was still dizzy and in pain like a big prawn. He stretched out his right hand, grabbed Yang Hairong's collar, and directly lifted him up with one hand. The collar was not very comfortable, so Poplar Fruit directly clasped his neck and lifted him off the ground. Yang Hairong's face turned red from being suffocated by Poplar Fruit. He waved his hands, trying to grab at Poplar Fruit's face. Poplar Fruit gently lifted him up, and then lifted him higher. Under the lack of oxygen, the veins on Yang Hairong's face bulged. His legs kicked weakly, and his hands tried to break free of Poplar Fruit's right hand. However, he could not break free of Poplar Fruit's iron grip. Poplar Fruit did not want to kill him. He just wanted to let him experience the feeling of suffocation. Before Yang Hairong could hold his neck and cough, Poplar Fruit used his left hand to pull him up from the ground. Poplar Fruit pulled Yang Hairong in front of him and stared at him fiercely with bloodshot eyes. Poplar Fruit was someone who had killed a few enemies. Under this imposing manner, Yang Hairong's eyes were full of fear and begging for mercy. However, how could Poplar Fruit let him off so easily? Kiki being bullied was the fuse, but the ignited explosive was also the pent-up depression in Poplar Fruit's heart for the past few days. Heartache, anger, oppression, and other emotions tangled together, and he finally exploded. Poplar Fruit tightly clenched his right fist, and only extended his index finger, pointed at Yang Hairong, and said word by word, "Do you know? You shouldn't have touched my daughter. You touched my daughter, you touched my family. No matter where you are, I swear I will chase you to the ends of the earth to kill you." Suddenly, Poplar Fruit loosened his fist, and without warning, turned his fist into a palm, and slapped down. Only a paw sound was heard, and Yang Hairong's head was tilted to the side. "This slap is for my daughter," Poplar Fruit said coldly, and loosened Yang Hairong's collar, and threw him to the ground. There was no need to say how strong Poplar Fruit was. This slap almost caused Yang Hairong to have a concussion. Even so, after a while, Yang Hairong turned his head. His mouth was full of blood, and he spat out 2 teeth with a wah sound. Yang Hairong, who was scared by Poplar Fruit's slap, actually started to cry. However, his crying didn't receive any pity from Poplar Fruit and Su Jinfeng. Kiki's unstoppable crying made Su Jinfeng's heart ache. She comforted Kiki on the side, and angrily scolded, "Serves you right, you deserve to die." Poplar Fruit kicked away Yang Hairong, who was covering his mouth and crying on the ground, and said coldly, "Scram, don't let me see you again." Yang Hairong was scared witless, and scrambled out of Poplar Fruit's yard. Poplar Fruit's face softened, and he returned to Kiki's side with heartache, and gently wiped away the tears on her face. Chapter 296. Kiki, don't cry. Tell me, does it hurt? Poplar Fruit's heart ached as he took his daughter from his mother's arms. Kiki directly hugged her biggest support, her father's neck. However, tears still flowed from her blurry eyes, and her sharp cries showed no signs of abating. Poplar Fruit's heart broke when he heard this. He gently patted his daughter's back and regretfully kissed his daughter's neck. His eyes were red as he said, "It's all my fault. I didn't protect Kiki well. It's all my fault." "Is this Poplar Fruit's house? Excuse me." At this time, a female voice suddenly appeared at the door. However, Poplar Fruit's mind was focused on Kiki. He had his back to the door and didn't pay attention to it at all. Instead, it was Su Jinfeng who opened her eyes wide and looked at the door. She saw a tall girl with short hair appear at the door. She was holding a long box in one hand and dragging a small suitcase in the other. She was looking inside. Poplar Fruit? The tall girl with short hair saw Poplar Fruit's back and heard Kiki's cries. She raised her eyebrows and shouted loudly. Poplar Fruit also heard it at this time. He held Kiki and turned around. He blinked his eyes and couldn't believe that he saw Zheng Yujie, who should have been thousands of miles away. "Aha! I finally found her." Zheng Yujie happily waved at Poplar Fruit. Then, she carried the small suitcase and stepped over the door and walked in. "Who is this girl?" Su Jinfeng blankly asked in her hometown's dialect. However, Poplar Fruit didn't answer her, nor did he pay attention to Zheng Yujie who walked in. At this time his heart was in pain. His mind was full of Kiki's bruised little face. He carried Kiki to sit on the rattan chair where Yang Tai often sat, and only cared about comforting Kiki. Yang Tai pulled Yang Lingjie and stood aside with Su Jinfeng. They didn't know what to do when they saw the beautiful and fashionable girl who came to their door. For Poplar Fruit's parents, Zheng Yujie's tall leather boots, tight leather pants, and slim jacket were really too fashionable. They had only seen such clothes on TV. Zheng Yujie's short hair and the pair of sunglasses on her forehead made her look very imposing. She immediately intimidated the two of them. "Auntie-uncle." Zheng Yujie also saw that Kiki was crying very hard. She carefully and very politely asked, "What's wrong with Poplar Fruit? Why is Kiki crying so hard?" She also vaguely guessed that the two rural couples in front of her were very likely Poplar Fruit's parents. Although she was mentally prepared before she came, she didn't expect to meet Poplar Fruit and his family in such a tense atmosphere. After Zheng Yujie spoke, her heart actually beat very fast. Although Zheng Yujie didn't have an obvious Beijing accent, Yang Tai and the others still had a hard time understanding her strong Beijing accent. In the end, Su Jinfeng, who was better at Mandarin, answered. Just now a young man in the village pinched Kiki's face. Poplar Fruit is angry. He hurt Kiki? Zheng Yujie's eyebrows almost raised. She raised her voice and then became gentle again. She realized that it was not appropriate to be too manly in front of Poplar Fruit's parents at this time. She asked softly, "Who was it? Was it the person who just walked by crying? I'll call the police to arrest him." "That's enough, Yujie, don't interfere." Poplar Fruit raised his head helplessly and said, "I just beat him up. We're all from the same village, so we see each other all the time." After that, he lowered his head again. While wiping Kiki's tears with his hand, he gently stroked the two blue marks on Kiki's face. Every time he touched them, Kiki couldn't help but tremble and then cry even harder. Poplar Fruit knew that it was very painful. He didn't dare to touch it again. His heart was in a mess, so he could only hug Kiki and comfort her. Zheng Yujie thought that Poplar Fruit was angry with her. When she saw Poplar Fruit talking to her, she breathed a sigh of relief. In her heart, she hated that embarrassed guy. She originally planned to give Poplar Fruit a surprise, but it was all ruined by him. "Miss." At this time, Su Jinfeng looked at Zheng Yujie, hesitated, and asked, "You are?" "Oh, I haven't introduced myself yet." Zheng Yujie quickly put the small suitcase aside and reached out her hand with a smile. "Hello, Auntie. My name is Zheng Yujie. I'm Poplar Fruit's friend. I'm here to celebrate Kiki's birthday." "Hello, hello." Su Jinfeng quickly shook Zheng Yujie's hand and said with a smile. Looking at Zheng Yujie's beautiful face and tall figure, her eyes became brighter and brighter. "Auntie, uncle, you two are Poplar Fruit's mother and father, right?" Zheng Yujie acted very obedient and asked sweetly. Yes. Yang Tai was a man of few words. Su Jinfeng answered with a smile. Haha, miss, please sit. After saying this, Su Jinfeng found that there were no other chairs in the yard. She quickly kicked Yang Tai and said in her hometown language, Old man, hurry up and get a chair. Zheng Yujie curiously watched as Yang Tai went into the house and brought out a few plastic stools. She quickly ran over to help. Miss, do you live in Yangqing too? How come I've never seen you before? Su Jinfeng asked as she found a cloth and wiped the stools and handed them to Zheng Yujie. Although Zheng Yujie felt that the countryside was a little dirty, she didn't nitpick at this time. She took the stools and sat down with a smile. No, auntie, I'm from Beijing. She carefully placed the long box in her hands on an empty stool. Yang Linjie held his grandfather's hand and curiously looked at the beautifully packaged long box. Oh, how did you two meet? Su Jinfeng couldn't be bothered to think about Duan Xueqing at this time. Seeing that the new girl had come, she couldn't help but ask. I work at a publishing company. Poplar Fruit flipped through a book and we met. Zheng Yujie smiled. We even went to America together a while ago. Poplar Fruit, why didn't you tell us? Look, the girl is already here. Su Jinfeng turned her head and shouted at Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit finally managed to coax Kiki to stop crying. One of his hands was tightly hugged by Kiki's chest while the other hand was lovingly stroking Kiki's head to calm her down. Turning his head, Poplar Fruit helplessly said, Can the two of you stop for a while? Yujie, I'm sorry. Something like this happened and I couldn't take care of you. Poplar Fruit gently sighed. He didn't even want to talk right now. He only wanted to find a way to heal Kiki's swollen face. I'll tell you guys later. If you have time, help me buy some medicine. Kiki's face is so swollen, I don't even know if it can go down. Poplar Fruit said without raising his head as he held his daughter's face in his hands. Chapter 297. Feeling her father's gaze, Chi-Chi's crying finally stopped gradually. She pouted her small mouth in grievance, her delicate nose sniffling hard, and there were even tears the size of beans swirling in her eyes. She raised her little hand to wipe the tears on her face, but they were sticky and uncomfortable. Poplar Fruit held his daughter's little hand and gently said, You can't wipe it with your hands. If you wipe it again, you'll become a big dirty cat. Kiki had already cried until she looked like a big dirty cat. Not only were there tears on her face, but the mucus that flowed out from her nose was also a mess. Use a wet tissue to wipe it. Zheng Yujie took out a wet tissue from her bag and helped Poplar Fruit tear off the plastic packaging. Okay, thank you. Poplar Fruit took it and gently wiped Kiki's face. He accidentally touched the bruise. Kiki's little body suddenly trembled, her mouth twitched, and she was about to cry again. Poplar Fruit quickly hugged Kiki into his arms, stood up and coaxed, Kiki, don't cry. Daddy won't touch there. Kiki, don't cry. Woof woof. Suddenly, 2 dog barks came from the door, and a small golden retriever ran in like an arrow from a bow. Gold followed Afu for a walk early in the morning. After returning to the village, it learned bad things from Afu. It often chased the old hen at home, causing dust to rise everywhere. Chickens flew and ducks jumped, and there was no peace for a moment. When it came back from its walk, it heard its little master crying from afar, so it anxiously ran in. Behind it was Afu, who had been running all the way. Gold circled around Poplar Fruit's feet. It even raised its front leg to Poplar Fruit's trousers. It stood up and barked twice, looking very anxious. Okay, you're also here to make trouble. Poplar Fruit lightly kicked Gold's dirty paws and said, This is Gold, right? Zheng Yujie squatted down and stroked Gold's fur. Gold and Zheng Yujie met for the first time, so it didn't want to be touched by her. It jumped away, and then continued to pester Poplar Fruit. Yes, it's Gold. I brought it back. It's not good to leave it alone in Yangcheng. Poplar Fruit took the time to look at Zheng Yujie. He saw that Zheng Yujie's black boots were stained with mud, and the ends of her short hair were dyed red. Perhaps it was because of the strong wind in the countryside, but her hair was also a bit messy. A trace of guilt arose in Yang Guo's heart. From the signs, Yonghua guessed that it was not easy for Zheng Yujie to come all the way to Yonghua's hometown and find such an unremarkable village in this small county. Yet, Yonghua didn't have the mood to pay attention to her. It was only because Zheng Yujie's heart was bigger that she didn't care about these details. If it was Duan Xueqing, she would probably be sad by the side. You found your way here yourself? Poplar Fruit suddenly asked. Why didn't you give me a call? I could have gone to pick you up. Look, your shoes are dirty. It wasn't that hard. Zheng Yujie stood up and looked at Poplar Fruit with a smile. The taxi left me behind before I reached the village. It took me a long time to find someone to ask for directions. If I called you, the surprise would have been ruined. Poplar Fruit looked at her for a long time, then said softly, I'm sorry that something like this happened. Hey, it's not a big deal. Zheng Yujie laughed. I'm happy to see you. It doesn't matter if it's a surprise or not. Su Jinfeng listened to their conversation with wide eyes. She looked at Poplar Fruit and Zheng Yujie from time to time. She muttered to herself, this expression, something's wrong. But what about Xiaoqing? Did she split the fruit with Xiaoqing? I think Xiaoqing is pretty good. Of course, Yujie is also pretty good. It's just that she looks a little older. It's just that I don't know how old she is. It's said that a woman who's 3 years older can hold a golden brick. It's good that she's a little older. She's sensible and considerate. Fruit is a little silly. She doesn't have a stable relationship. It's good that someone can take care of her. But that's not right. Yujie is from Beijing. They're so far apart. How can they get along? The distance is also a problem. Su Jinfeng started to think about her gains and losses. After a while, Yang Tai came back on his motorcycle. Before he stopped the motorcycle, he stretched out his hand and said, the medicine is here. Zheng Yujie didn't understand his native language, but she still understood. She quickly took the small box of medicine from Yang Tai's hand and looked at it carefully. That's not right. Zheng Yujie asked doubtfully. This medicine is for adults. Can Kiki use it? Uncle, did you buy the wrong one? Yang Tai didn't understand either. Su Jinfeng translated for Zheng Yujie. Of course, she also criticized him. Why didn't you look at the medicine when you bought it? The older you get, the more muddle-headed you become. Who said I didn't look at it? Yang Tai was not convinced. He straightened his neck and said, Lao Hui in the village only sells this medicine. What else can I be picky about? Can you just put up with it? Poplar Fruit was worried about his daughter's swollen face. His brain wasn't very bright. He felt like he was trying to find a doctor in a desperate situation. He asked Zheng Yujie. I don't think so. Zheng Yujie hesitated for a moment and said, a child's skin isn't as rough as ours. I'm afraid there will be problems if you rub it. Why don't we go to the city and ask? Poplar Fruit calmed down a little. He thought for a moment and said, you really can't rub it. Then don't rush to buy medicine. I'll ask my brother-in-law later. I'll rub it for her when she goes to bed at night. Otherwise, I'll rub it all into her eyes. Dad, take this medicine first. It really can't be used on Kiki. Poplar Fruit handed the medicine back and said to Yang Tai in his native language, then I'll take it back and return it. Yang Tai took the medicine and got on the motorcycle again. Why return it? You already bought it. How can Uncle Shui return it for you? Poplar Fruit held his daughter and asked puzzledly. Usually he won't. Your dad has a lot of face. Su Jinfeng laughed. He goes there every day to drink tea and play cards. They have a good relationship. Hurry up and return it. Anyway, we haven't opened it. It's only a few dozen yuan. A few dozen what? Yang Tai said indifferently. Shui didn't even take my money. Poplar Fruit didn't care about that small amount of money. However, he was too lazy to persuade the older generation who were used to dealing with every cent clearly. Since they could solve it, then there was no need to say anything. Yang Tai's motorcycle hadn't started yet when there was a loud noise coming from the courtyard entrance. Where do you think you're going after hitting someone? Yang Hairong's muffled voice appeared at the entrance of the courtyard. 2 of his teeth were knocked out by Yonggua's slap, so he spoke with a lisp. Poplar Fruit's face suddenly darkened. He turned his head and saw a group of people standing at the courtyard entrance. There were both men and women. They were all young Hairong's family members. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 298. Poplar Fruit's courtyard was surrounded by a large group of people. Most of them were from Yang Hairong's Yang family, and there were also some people who wanted to watch the show. Yang Hairong was holding a hoe with his head held high. Although his mouth was bleeding, he still had a proud look on his face as he stood in front of the crowd. Two of his cousins who were close to Yang Hairong stood on either side of him. The one on the left was called Yang Xinfu, and he was holding a stool leg in his hand. The one on the right was called Yang Dongshun. He probably couldn't find anything useful, so he directly carried the big broom from home. Only these two young men in vests were holding the weapon with Yang Hairong. The others were standing behind with their hands on their chests. This wasn't a fight between villages in the last century, so they didn't take it seriously. Kiki was shocked by Yang Hairong's sudden appearance. In her heart, this person was like a big demon, very scary. She didn't see how Poplar Fruit beat up this big demon, so her heart was still full of fear. She was like a little ostrich, tightly burying her head in her father's arms. I told you to be arrogant, arrogant. Yang Hairong's hand that wasn't holding a hoe was holding a lit cigarette. He pointed at Poplar Fruit and said proudly, "You can look down on us villagers just because you have money. You think you're so great because you have money?" Zheng Yujie didn't understand what they were talking about, so she whispered to Poplar Fruit, "Should we call the police?" "Calling the police is useless." Poplar Fruit turned around and put Kiki in Zheng Yujie's arms. Indeed, in the village, as long as no one died, it was always settled by themselves. Even if the police came, it would be useless. The villagers wouldn't talk reason with you. It seemed that today was not going to be peaceful. Poplar Fruit felt that he had to go up and talk with them. However, Kiki grabbed Poplar Fruit's collar tightly and refused to let go. Poplar Fruit gently stroked her head and said, "Good girl, don't be afraid. Let Daddy vent for you." "Step back or go into the house," Poplar Fruit said to Zheng Yujie and Su Jinfeng. "Don't fight." Su Jinfeng could no longer stay calm. After all, the three of them were holding weapons, and Yang Hairong had a rusty hoe in his hand. Trembling, she pulled Poplar Fruit and said, "Why don't we give in?" "Don't worry," Poplar Fruit smiled, patted his mother's hand, and comforted her. "They can't touch me." With that, Poplar Fruit turned around and walked towards Yang Hairong with a faint smile on his face. "Poplar Fruit, it's not that I want to criticize you." Yang Hairong's father stood behind Yang Hairong and pretended to be serious as he said, "You can't forget your roots, right? You've made a lot of money, so why can't you take these brothers who grew up with you? Even if you've grown up and looked down on us, and Hairong begs you to give him a job, you can't beat him up, right? This is clearly bullying, isn't it?" Yang Hairong's mother was like a village shrew. She cried, stomped her feet and yelled, "My poor son. He quit a job that cost him thousands of yuan to come back from afar, just to help you, you damn rich man. Who knew that his good intentions would not be rewarded, and two of his teeth would be knocked out. As a mother, how can I not feel sorry for him? Your whole family will die a horrible death." Everyone in Yang Hairong's family was a master of twisting the truth. At this moment, they were all scolding Poplar Fruit at the same time, trying to gain the upper hand by a show of strength, so that they would be in the right position. Poplar Fruit was silent. He stood in front of Yang Hairong and did not refute a word. It was not that he was not angry. Poplar Fruit's chest was already filled with raging anger. It was just that he did not want to refute, because at this time, one person could not win against a group of people. "What do you want?" Poplar Fruit asked coldly. His hands were naturally hanging down, but if people paid attention, they would see that the veins on Poplar Fruit's hands were squirming. It was a sign that he was burning with anger, and was slowly accumulating strength. Yang Hairong did not expect Poplar Fruit to respond so calmly. He was suddenly at a loss for words. Before he came, he thought that Poplar Fruit would argue with him or fight to the death with him. He also thought that Poplar Fruit would soften and beg for mercy when he saw the group of people, But he did not expect Poplar Fruit's attitude to be so carefree. Do you still think that you haven't been beaten enough? Poplar Fruit suddenly laughed softly. That laughter was a little cold, like a strange melody floating through the crowd. Young Hairong was stunned, and his eyes suddenly widened. He did not expect Poplar Fruit to suddenly say such mocking words. He roared angrily. Do you want to die? Can't you see that there are so many of us? Can't you see my hoe or what? Before he finished speaking, he swung the hoe up and made a posture that looked like he was going to smash Poplar Fruit's head. Ah! Zhang Yujie screamed. She really thought that the hoe was going to hit him. Poplar Fruit was indeed very calm. He could see that Yang Hairong's action was more of a threat than a hit. You still think that you're right? Poplar Fruit said with a smile. In contrast to the long-winded scolding of the other side, Poplar Fruit did not say much, but every word made people feel very uncomfortable. It was as if a fly had suddenly flown into their mouths while they were talking, and they felt disgusted as if they had eaten it. Fuck, you hit Brother Rong and you're still so stubborn. Yang Xinfu, who was next to them, could not hold back anymore. He shouted and rushed up with the stool leg. The stool leg was as thick as a person's forearm. Although it was aimed at the arm, if it was smashed down with force, it would almost break the arm. These three people, including Yang Hairong, were all hotheads. They did not care about the consequences of fighting. So when Yang Xinfu smashed the stool leg, he had no intention of reducing the force. Poplar Fruit's reaction was very fast. He just took a step back and avoided Yang Xinfu's attack. Yang Xinfu used all his strength to swing the stool leg. After he missed, his whole body was affected by inertia and fell forward. Poplar Fruit took advantage of the opportunity to press down on his arm. He stepped forward with his left leg and raised his right leg, ready to knee him in the chest. If the impact was solid, with Poplar Fruit's strength, Yang Xinfu would definitely have a few broken ribs. However, Poplar Fruit withdrew his leg in the end. He did not hit Yang Xinfu. Instead, he pressed down on Yang Xinfu's head with his left hand and pushed him hard to the ground. Yang Xinfu awkwardly rolled on the ground twice before stopping. It was exactly the same as when Yang Hairong was kicked to the ground by Poplar Fruit. This made Yang Hairong's eyes turn red. He remembered the humiliation that Poplar Fruit gave him not long ago. The blood in his mouth and the smell of mud on his body had not dissipated, and his mind was filled with hatred. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to that you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.